the luckiest days and colors for each zodiac sign in 2026. One year can change a person, but 2026 will change everyone who knows their path. In this video, I will reveal the specific days when the energy intensifies dramatically for each sign of the zodiac, as well as the colors that will open channels of luck, determination, and inner strength. This is not symbolism or general wording. It is a practical, esoteric toolkit that will work to your advantage at moments of peak elevation. We will analyze when a powerful impulse for action is activated, when it is worth making decisions, and which shades harmonize your energy and enhance the natural advantages of your sign. Some days will bring breakthroughs, others will bring the opportunity to resolve long-standing issues, and some will open the way to completely new opportunities. This material is created for those who want not just to know the forecast, but to use it as a tool. Listen carefully, compare it with your life processes, and feel how knowledge begins to work for you from the very first minutes. Write in the comments what your zodiac sign is and whether your feelings match my analysis. Subscribe so you don't miss the next in-depth analyses, created especially for those who want to control their own destiny rather than wait for it to unfold on its own. Aries. For Aries in 2026, everything depends on the right days and the right colors. This is the year when haste will finally start working in their favor, not against them, if they learn to rely on the calendar and the color palette. The luckiest days form a clear rhythm that can be used as a working tool. These are primarily the 1st, 3rd, 9th, 11th, 17th, 19th, 21st, 23rd, 27th, and 29th of different months. It is on these dates that Aries will feel inner composure, logical decisions, and a special ease in achieving goals. If we break them down by area, the most productive days for business and money will be the 1st, 9th, 17th, and 27th. For relationships and social contacts, the 3rd, 11th, 19th, and 23rd. For personal breakthroughs, self-expression, and change, the 21st and 29th. It is worth planning key calls, negotiations, signing contracts, launching new projects, meeting new people, important trips, and public speeches on these days, because internal resistance will be minimal and confidence will be at its highest. Mornings on lucky days for Aries should start with specifics. Get up at the usual time, make a short plan for the day, written down on paper or in your phone, and clearly define 3 main tasks. On such days, his thoughts are less chaotic, and decisions are less subject to emotional fluctuations. It is important not to get distracted. If it is the 9th, it is the perfect time to negotiate a raise, change the terms of cooperation, or search for new clients. If it's the 3rd or 11th on the calendar, these days are better suited for meetings, first dates, frank conversations, and establishing contacts. Because Aries will sound confident but not aggressive, and their arguments will be perceived as constructive rather than pressure. The color palette for Aries in 2026 is built around several key shades that stabilize their impulsiveness and enhance their leadership qualities without unnecessary conflict. The main working colors are deep red, terracotta, burgundy, pure white, charcoal gray, rich blue, and soft graphite. Deep red in clothing details emphasizes determination and gives Aries a psychological signal to act boldly. A tie, scarf, t-shirt, phone case, or backpack in this color on lucky days 1, 9, 17, and 27 make their behavior more decisive and reduce doubts before taking important steps. Terracotta and burgundy should be used when you need to combine assertiveness with maturity. For example, when meeting with people who are older or higher in status, where it is important to make an impression not just as an active person, but as a responsible one. Pure white in Aries' wardrobe and surroundings on lucky days acts as a stabilizer. A white desk, white notebook, white shirt, or t-shirt on days 3, 11, and 23 help them structure their thoughts and not get carried away with their own activity. This is not about tenderness, but about order. A white background enhances the contrast between the main and the secondary, allowing you to quickly discard the unnecessary. Charcoal grey and graphite are working colours for those moments when you need less emotion and more strategy. If Aries is planning an important financial move on their lucky day, pairing a dark grey jacket with a red accent, watch, bracelet, belt, briefcase, creates the right internal balance between risk and reasonable caution. Rich blue helps Aries not to burn out in the process of achieving their goals. This colour should be used on days 19, 21, and 29, when there may be sudden changes related to education, relocation, or lifestyle. A blue hue on a sweatshirt, bedding, smartphone, or laptop wallpaper supports concentration, helps you avoid wasting energy on unnecessary actions, and keeps your attention on medium-term goals. On such days, Aries should combine blue elements with white to enhance the clarity of decisions and avoid a chaotic mix of overly bright colours, which creates the impression of inner disorder. Aries' lucky days in the sphere of money have their own internal rhythm. The first is the best time to start something new. Open an account, submit an application, send out resumes, launch an advertising campaign, or take the first step in a new venture. The 9th and 17th are best used for specific steps related to salary negotiations, rate increases, signing agreements, or transitioning to new terms of cooperation. The 27th is suitable for summarizing interim results, adjusting strategy, analyzing income and expenses, and developing new goals. On these days, Aries should set clear financial goals for themselves: how much to earn, what to adjust, what to give up. It is important that at least one of these days each month is spent not only on work, but also on planning. Otherwise, energy will be spent only on current tasks. In relationships, the brightest moments await Aries on the 3rd, 11th, 19th, and 23rd. On these dates, it will be easier to talk about feelings without unnecessary drama. Explain your needs without accusations, and agree on joint plans. If Aries has been avoiding an awkward conversation for a long time, these dates offer the least risk of conflict and the greatest likelihood of constructive dialogue. For meetings at this time, combinations of soft shades are well suited: white with terracotta, burgundy with blue, shades of warm grey with red details. Such a choice of clothing will be perceived as confidence without aggression, which is especially important in romantic situations and partner discussions. The colours in Aries' home and workspace in 2026 are no less important than the colours in their wardrobe. If their desk is cluttered with objects of different shades, Aries will have trouble concentrating, and even happy days will lose some of their potential. In this case, it is worth choosing 2 or 3 dominant colours for the work area. For example, a white desk, a graphite chair, and a red detail, a lamp, a laptop stand, or a photo frame. This simple structure already creates an impression of internal order and does not distract during the most productive days. On lucky days, 1, 9, 17, and 27, it is advisable to clear the table surface of everything unnecessary, leaving only the essentials: a gadget, a notebook, a pen, and one item in your power color. A separate topic is the screen background. In 2026, Aries should take this seriously, especially considering how much time they spend on their phone or laptop. On lucky days for money, 1, 9, 17, 27, it is appropriate to set a background with clear geometric lines in a combination of red, white, and graphite. On days related to communication and relationships, 3, 11, 19, 23, images with large expanses of sky, water, or city panoramas in shades of blue, white, and grey are more suitable. On days of personal transformation, when Aries plans internal decisions related to education, career change, or relocation, 21 and 29, it is best to use backgrounds with deep blue and small splashes of warm light, which helps to focus on the main thing. For physical activity on lucky days, it is worth considering the effect of colour on mood. Aries traditionally gets energized from movement, but in 2026, it is the combination of activity with the right palette that gives it an edge in endurance. For training on days 1, 9, 17, and 27, the most useful outfit will be one with red or burgundy accents, shorts, sneakers, and a sports jacket. On days 3, 11, 19, and 23, it is better to switch to calmer combinations, grey with white, blue with graphite, so as not to provoke excessive aggression in communication after training. This mindset helps Aries come out of physical activity not overwhelmed, but focused and ready for constructive interaction with their surroundings. Aries often underestimates the role of rest, especially in years when many opportunities open up for them. In 2026, even on happy days, they should take short breaks to recover. Warm shades work best for relaxation. Terracotta blankets, soft brown interior details, muted burgundy and textiles. On the evenings of happy days, especially after intense events, it is helpful to switch from an active red palette to a calmer, but still warm colour scheme, so that the brain can gradually slow down. This helps to maintain clarity of thought for the next productive days and avoid burning out in the middle of the month. An important point for Aries is to avoid accidentally using unfavourable combinations on key, happy days. For example, excessive dominance of chaotic bright colours on these dates, acid green, overly bright pink, colourful prints without logic, creates a feeling of internal noise and can reduce the effectiveness of decisions made. On lucky days, it is desirable to build your image around one dominant shade with 2 or 3 neutral supporting colours. Aries who consciously approach their wardrobe notice how on such days it is easier to say no to unnecessary obligations, filter offers, and choose what really brings them closer to their goals. In terms of self-discipline, the happiest days of Aries in 2026 provide an opportunity to create lasting habits. If at least 2 of the above-mentioned days each month are devoted to repetitive rituals, analysing results, planning, reviewing mistakes, Aries will gradually build a system that works regardless of mood. For example, it is worth making the 1st a day for setting goals and the 27th a day for review, choosing specific colours for this in the form of a secret code: red for setting tasks and graphite with white for analysis. This approach creates an internal marker that helps the brain quickly switch to the desired mode of operation. The value of combining the happiest days and the right colours for Aries is that it transforms emotional character into structured strength. In 2026, they will not just rush into events, but will build them into a logical chain where each date has its own function and each shade enhances the desired quality. Where there was chaos before, there is now a controlled flow of decisions. Where there was conflict before, there is now the ability to engage in dialogue. Where there were random successes before, there is now a stable system of action. It is thanks to his attentive attitude to the calendar and palette that Aries in 2026 will be able to use his luckiest days not as isolated strokes of luck, but as a predictable resource that works for his finances, relationships, health, and personal development. In 2026, Taurus will have the opportunity to build not only comfort, but also systematic luck, which is tied to specific numbers and shades. It is important for them not to jump, but to strengthen the ground under their feet step by step. And the most accurate tool for this is choosing the right days for key events. The main lucky numbers are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 14, 16, 20, 24, and 28. These are not random points, but dates on which Taurus will feel a special stability, the ability to soberly assess reality, bargain, negotiate, buy, sell, change the financial structure, and strengthen the sense of security. They provide less emotional fluctuations and more inner confidence in one's own decisions. Each group of days has its own function. The 2nd, 10th, and 20th are suitable for everything related to income and long-term money, signing contracts, negotiating payment, choosing new sources of income, changing jobs, and launching a separate line of business. On these days, Taurus finds it easier to reject questionable options and does not agree to unfavorable terms. The 4th, 14th, and 24th are best used for large purchases, investments in technology, furniture, repairs, and any material things that will serve for years. That's when their taste and pragmatism work together, and the risk of buying something unnecessary is much lower. The 6th, 16th, and 28th are the best days for relationships. Talking with your partner about your life together, splitting expenses, and planning your next steps as a couple. The 8th and 18th are well suited for working on your body, analyzing your well-being, choosing a new diet, training, and medical consultations. The stability that Taurus seeks is particularly evident on these days if you combine the calendar with the palette. The key shades for Taurus are deep green, olive, moss green, beige, cream, warm brown, chocolate, copper, sand, and as a soft accent, muted pink and light lavender. This is not a decorative detail, but a practical tool that sets the internal pace. Deep green stabilizes thinking and encourages pragmatic decisions. Olive helps you slow down and filter out noise. Beige and cream relieve tension when you have to wait a long time, negotiate, listen, and analyze. Warm brown and chocolate enhance the feeling of stability, responsibility, and maturity in financial matters. On lucky income days, the 2nd, 10th, and 20th, it is useful for Taurus to build an image around a combination of green and brown. For example, a dark green sweater or shirt, a brown belt, a leather briefcase, a watch with a natural-colored strap, and a copper or bronze-colored accessory. This outfit suggests that now is the time to think like an owner who manages resources, rather than a person who reacts to circumstances. On these days, it is better to plan conversations with management, meetings with clients, attempts to negotiate more favorable terms, and analysis of the cost of your own work. If you have a job interview or partnership discussion on this day, it is worth choosing simple but high-quality clothing without flashy details, with an emphasis on restrained earth tones. Dates associated with large purchases, the 4th, 14th, and 24th, require a different mood. Here, it is important not only to rationally evaluate the price, but also to feel whether the item will really bring comfort. Beige, cream, and sand colors, combined with olive details, work well for this. Clothes in light, calm shades help you think practically rather than impulsively. If Taurus chooses appliances, furniture, or something for the home on these days, it is worth sticking to a palette that is close to natural materials: wood, linen fabrics, natural leather. Even a phone case or bag in this spectrum becomes a reminder that the decision made should serve for a long time, not just give a short-lived emotion. The 6th, 16th, and 28th are important days for relationships. because that is when Taurus is able to talk about their needs without unnecessary harshness and listen without internal resistance. It is appropriate to weave soft accents into your image: muted pink, light lavender, light green. This is not about demonstrative tenderness, but about a willingness to engage in dialogue. On such days, it is useful to plan conversations about the joint budget, everyday life, future purchases, vacations, and any situations where differences in expectations can create tension. If Taurus is used to dressing concisely, one detail in a soft shade is enough: a scarf, t-shirt, bracelet, or even a smartphone wallpaper. This is a small reminder that today it is worth explaining, not demanding. Taurus should pay special attention to days related to the body and health, the 8th and 18th. On these dates, they will feel their body's signals more clearly: what to change in their diet, how much rest they need, which exercise regime maintains their strength and which exhausts them. The best combination here is olive, moss green, and light cream. These shades are well suited for clothing that is comfortable to move in: sports suits, sneakers, t-shirts, and hoodies. On such days, it is useful not only to train, but also to organize your routine: what foods to add, what to remove, how many hours of sleep you really need. If you have a doctor's appointment, tests, or a consultation scheduled, wearing clothes in subdued, natural tones on the 8th or 18th will help you stay calm and not get worked up over unnecessary thoughts. Morning rituals on lucky days are very important for Taurus. This is a sign that works better when there is a consistent order. Waking up on their lucky days, they should immediately pay attention to the first 3 things they see. If these are chaotic colors, a pile of scattered things, bright objects without logic, the day begins with a feeling of overload. If, on the other hand, the eye encounters an orderly space, light-colored textiles, wooden textures, delicate green accents, the brain receives a signal that everything is under control. Therefore, in 2026, it is worth thinking about the bedroom and workplace so that on happy days they do not require additional cleaning. It is enough to maintain basic order and avoid sharp, colorful combinations. In 2026, Taurus's work area will become a place where colors and dates work together. For the table at which he makes decisions, the optimal combination is a beige or wooden top, a dark green or graphite chair, and a couple of small details in brown or copper tones. A laptop stand, paper organizer, and mug can all be kept in a single, non-distracting palette. On lucky days for income and purchases, it is worth adding one strong item to the table. For example, a green notebook for financial records, or a brown diary where decisions about money are recorded. This creates a tangible thread between the date, color, and action that the brain remembers and reproduces later. Digital space also affects Taurus. In 2026, it will be useful for them to divide backgrounds for different groups of lucky days. For the 2nd, 10th, and 20th, use images of nature with a dominant green color: forests, fields, gardens, large leaf patterns, but without excessive effects. For the 4th, 14th, and 24th, interiors with comfortable textures: wood, stone, textiles, warm light walls, minimalism in forms. For the 6th, 16th, and 28th, scenes with 2 or more people in calm, natural shades, without conflict, with a sense of dialogue and mutual understanding. For health days, the 8th and 18th, it is better to use images of clear skies, water, light spaces, dominated by soft green, blue, or cream tones. When these backgrounds are turned on the right dates, the consciousness quickly switches to the appropriate mode. During happy days, Taurus has another strong point. the ability to pause. This is a useful trait for any negotiations and decisions. When they are dressed in a stable, earthy palette, and the date supports their deliberateness, silence ceases to be uncomfortable. It becomes a tool. During the pause, they have time to evaluate the offer, compare options, and ask additional questions. This becomes especially valuable on days of large purchases and financial transactions, the 4th, 14th, and 24th. If on these dates Taurus remembers that he does not need to rush, but should stick to his price, his position will appear not stubborn, but confident. Another important aspect is resting on the right days. Although Taurus always loves comfort, in 2026, the most important thing is not to spend happy days only on work. At least one date from each group should be reserved for combining useful activities with pleasant rituals. For example, the 6th or 16th can be used for a dinner with your partner, where you discuss not only everyday topics, but also common goals. An interior in warm beige and copper tones, pleasant textiles, and soft lighting will enhance the feeling of security without which Taurus does not open up. The 8th or 18th can be devoted not to intense workouts, but to sensible body care, massage, swimming, a walk in nature, where the eyes can rest on shades of green and brown. For happy days to work to their full potential, Taurus needs to keep an eye on which combinations are best to avoid. An excess of cold metallic tones in the wardrobe and interior, shiny silver, overly cold grey, sterile white without warm accents, in his case can create a feeling of alienation rather than strength. It is especially undesirable to overload the image with them on days of relationships and health. If everything around looks like a lifeless office space, Taurus becomes more rigid, less sociable, and loses flexibility. Therefore, even in a strictly designed environment, it is worth adding at least one detail in a warm, earthy tone, a wooden frame, textiles in sandy tones, a green plant in a simple pot. In 2026, it will be easy for Taurus to manage dates and colours as a system. They can separate one day a month from the income group, one from the shopping group, one from relationships, and one from health, making them reference points. Each of them will have its own shades, its own set of tasks, its own morning and evening rituals. For example, the 2nd is a day for reviewing income, wearing green and brown clothes, analysing expenses, and setting financial goals. The 14th is the day for planning or making large purchases, wearing light-coloured clothes, having a relaxed schedule, and taking time to compare options. The 16th is the day when the main focus is on relationships, soft shades, conversation without unnecessary gadgets, discussion of plans. The 8th is a day for taking care of your health, olive colours, light food, exercise without overexertion. When Taurus systematically repeats these connections, happy days cease to be isolated bursts of luck. They become a structure that can be replicated and scaled. In 2026, it is through such days and the corresponding palette that he forms the habit of checking how useful his choices are in the long run, and not just how pleasant they are now. This creates a foundation on which you don't have to constantly start from scratch. Financial decisions build on each other, things in the home last longer, relationships become more stable, and the body gets adequate exercise and rest. For Taurus, this is a model that allows them to feel that life is no longer a random set of events, but a controlled process where every number and every shade has its place and works for their peace of mind, prosperity, and confidence. For Gemini, 2026 works like a precise plan, where everything is tied to the pace of events, clarity of decisions, and the correct use of days and colours. This is a sign that lives in information, constant contacts, messages, calls, and changes of plans. and that is why it especially needs specific guidelines. When to say yes, when to reschedule a meeting, when to launch an idea, and when it is better to focus on structure. The happiest days form a kind of wave rhythm for Gemini. The most productive and successful are the 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, 12th, 15th, 18th, 21st, 23rd, 26th, and 30th. They are not the same in meaning, but on each of them it is easier to gather your thoughts, negotiate, persuade, combine several things without chaos, and find the people you need at that very moment, on the 3rd, 12th, 21st, and 30th. Everything related to information, education, documents, online projects, social networks, and presentations is particularly successful. On these dates, Gemini think faster, catch nuances in other people's phrases, choose the right arguments, and feel where to press and where it is better to remain silent. If you need to present an idea, come up with a new proposal, record a video, host a webinar, attend an interview, negotiate a partnership, or launch an advertising campaign. These dates should be prioritized. There is no need to pretend that everything is perfect. It is enough to express your thoughts clearly and in a structured manner, without trying to squeeze all possible options into one conversation. The 5th, 15th, and 25th, even if the 25th is not always key, it supports the overall rhythm of luck, are good for ideas, creativity, change, and new formats. On these days, many ideas arise that should not be put off until later. It is useful for Gemini to record every idea, take notes on your phone, record voice drafts, save the structures of scripts, plans, posts, and courses. These days are ideal for launching a new project, testing a format, or taking tentative steps in an unfamiliar field. Here, luck is not so much in the immediate result as in correctly seized opportunities, responding to a message from the right person, seeing an interesting offer, responding to a collaboration in time. The 7th, 17th, and 27th bring a different kind of luck. A deep kind, connected with rethinking, internal decisions, and revising strategies. On these days, it is easier for Gemini not to scatter their thoughts, but to gather them into one clear vector. This is a good time to plan serious conversations about money, changing careers, long-term goals, dividing responsibilities in relationships, moving, and big steps. If there are issues that have been put off for a long time, these dates create the best ground for finally sorting everything out calmly. Gemini are less emotional and more analytical on these days. They see not only the now picture, but also the consequences a few steps ahead. The 9th, 18th, and 26th are especially good for trips, short journeys, moving between cities, and important meetings that require a change of location. On these days, it is easier to find the optimal route, avoid unnecessary delays, arrive at meetings on time, and plan your schedule correctly. If Gemini work in a field related to roads, logistics, transportation, courier services, or off-site negotiations, these dates should be used as reference points. That is when you get the feeling that space is not resisting you. Transport arrives on time, the right people are nearby, documents are not lost, and agreements are not broken. Colors for Gemini in 2026 act as a regulator of speed and clarity. Their natural tendency to take on too many tasks at once needs to be corrected, and the palette becomes a management tool. The main colors of luck are bright but pure yellow, soft lemon, turquoise, blue, mint, light grey, cool white, electric blue, sky blue, and as accents, purple and silver. Each of these shades has its own function. Yellow enhances clarity and speed of thought. Turquoise and mint balance the nervous system. Blue and sky blue reduce internal noise. Light grey structures space. Electric blue helps you focus on one task rather than jumping between 10. On days associated with information and presentations, the 3rd, 12th, 21st, and 30th, it is useful for Gemini to incorporate yellow, blue, and light grey accents into their look. This could be a soft blue shirt, a yellow notebook, a sweater with light grey details, a watch strap, or a bracelet in a yellowish tone. This combination creates an impression of openness and lightness, but does not look too frivolous. It helps you speak to the point without losing your liveliness. If you are planning to record a video or give a public speech, choose a top in blue or mint tones, without small aggressive patterns, so as not to overload the viewer's attention. On days when your creative flow is working, the 5th, 15th, and 25th, turquoise, mint, sky blue, and soft lemon work well. Here, it is appropriate to combine clothing, work items, and digital space in such a way that they support a feeling of freshness and novelty. For example, a laptop or phone background with turquoise and mint transitions, a sky blue sweater, a notebook with a light lemon cover. On days like these, Gemini should allow themselves flexibility, change their place of work, co-working space, coffee shop, another room. Write down everything that comes to mind without trying to immediately evaluate how right it is. The palette works to prevent ideas from being blocked from within. For the profound days of the 7th, 17th, and 27th, when serious decisions need to be made, it is helpful to enhance light grey, silver, cool white, and purple accents in your image and space. Here, the task of the palette is not to mute the mind, but to put it into analytical mode. Light grey clothing, a white shirt, silver accessories, a purple bookmark in your diary, or a simple piece of jewelry. All of this helps Gemini switch from superficial conversations to deeper ones. On such days, it is worth limiting visual noise. Fewer bright prints, a minimum of colourful trinkets on the table, a clean working background. This reduces the likelihood that thoughts will start to scatter in different directions at the most crucial moment. On days when you are travelling or meeting outside the home, 9, 18, 26, it is good to combine blue, sky blue, and turquoise with neutral grey and white shades. This creates a sense of movement without tension. For example, a blue jacket, grey jeans, a white t-shirt, and a small turquoise accessory, headphones, a backpack, or a phone case. On such days, it is important to have an item with you that is associated with order. A structured notebook, a folder with documents, a well-organized backpack without chaos. This helps you stay focused between transportation, messages, and meetings, even if your schedule is tight. The Gemini's workspace in 2026 should directly support their happy days. The desk where they spend most of their time should be visually light, a light-colored tabletop, a minimum of unnecessary items, 1 or 2 functional accents in bright but not flashy colors. For example, a white or light grey desk, a mint organizer, a yellow mug. On days of informational and financial activity, only keep what you really need for your tasks on the table: a gadget, a notebook, a pen, a glass of water. If small items of different colors are in the field of vision, the Gemini brain begins to scatter, and even a happy day loses some of its potential. The digital environment of Gemini also needs structure. In 2026, it will be useful to create several background images specifically for groups of lucky days and change them the day before. For days of presentations and communications, use a background with clean yellow and blue blocks or abstractions dominated by light tones. For creative days, use turquoise, mint, and sky blue transitions with soft light and no aggressive contrast. For days of deep decisions, minimalist grey and silver compositions with a small purple accent. For travel days, images of roads, city skylines, train stations, or airports in cool, clean shades. This connection helps the brain quickly understand what mode it needs to work in today. On happy days, it is useful for Gemini to start the morning not with a haphazard review of their feeds, but with a quick tune-up. 3 main tasks, clearly written down: checking the calendar, quickly sorting messages into urgent and can wait. If it is the 3rd, 12th, 21st, or 30th, the priority is important calls and letters, negotiations, agreements, and responses to requests that can bring money or new prospects. If it's the 5th, 15th, or 25th, it's worth building a block of continuous creative work into your day, writing a script, a detailed post, a course plan, or a project structure. If it's the 7th, 17th, or 27th, it's a good idea to set aside a few hours for strategic thinking, financial review, analysis of results, development of next steps. If it's the 9th, 18th, or 26th, the key focus is on travel and meetings. In terms of money, Gemini's lucky days help to bring order where multitasking usually reigns. On the 3rd, 12th, 21st, and 30th, it is better to discuss terms of cooperation, sign contracts, agree on rates, send commercial offers, and remind people about payments. It is important to maintain a concise communication style, brief, to the point, without unnecessary explanations. Clothing in a yellow, blue, and light grey palette creates the impression of a person who is both easy to communicate with and able to maintain boundaries. On the 5th, 15th, and 25th, it is worth focusing on ideas that will eventually be monetized: product improvement, the formation of new directions, and the development of formats that will bring income not immediately, but steadily. The 7th, 17th, and 27th are good days for reviewing your budget, planning investments, analyzing expenses, and changing financial habits. In relationships, these lucky days give Gemini a chance to avoid typical mistakes, superficiality, avoiding difficult topics, and excessive irony where clarity is needed. The 5th, 15th, 25th, and 23rd can be used for lively but meaningful conversations with your partner, planning joint projects, vacations, and everyday decisions. Clothes with mint, sky blue, light grey, and small yellow accents help create an atmosphere of openness. The 7th, 17th, and 27th are more suitable for deep dialogues, where you need to talk through difficult moments, set boundaries, and agree on rules. It is better to choose restrained colours here: grey, white, purple details, and a minimum of bright patterns. It is important that Gemini do not overload their calendar on these days, leaving time not only for words, but also for silence. Health and energy on happy days can also be managed. The 9th, 18th, and 26th provide the best conditions for changing your routine. Start regular walks, jogs, sports, and activities that involve a change of location. Clothes for this should be chosen in turquoise, sky blue, mint, and light grey shades. They do not tire the eyes and are associated with lightness. The 7th, 17th, and 27th are good days for medical consultations, tests, planning preventive measures, and drawing up a realistic schedule for sleep, nutrition, and exercise. On these days, it is worth avoiding overly bright, loud colours in everything: in clothing, interior design, and screens. There are also combinations that Gemini should avoid emphasizing on lucky days in 2026. Excessive use of heavy brown, dark burgundy, and very dark green tones in their case gives a feeling of sluggishness, even if the day itself is favorable. It is especially undesirable to overload your image with them on days when quick reactions, clarity of thought, and flexibility are needed. If the environment is too dark and visually dense, Gemini begin to postpone decisions rather than make them. Therefore, it is always worth leaving space for light, white, light grey, blue, or mint backgrounds, even if the overall style favours deep colours. To ensure that happy days and colours do not remain a theory, it is useful for Gemini to develop their own scheme. For example, choose 3 or 4 dates each month as reference points. One for financial decisions and negotiations, one for creative launches, one for in-depth planning, and one for trips and important meetings. Each of them will have its own colour code, morning ritual, and typical tasks. This removes the feeling of constant improvisation, which is often tiring, and turns 2026 into a structure where you can predict not only the workload, but also the result. As a result, for Gemini, the happiest days and the right colours in 2026 become not a decoration, but a working tool. They allow you to reduce the number of chaotic decisions, cut down on unnecessary meetings, choose the right moment to start, and not lose valuable ideas that usually get lost in the flow of everyday tasks. Where there used to be constant rush, clear time points appear. Where there used to be random successes, a repeatable pattern is formed. And this is how Gemini will have the opportunity this year to transform their natural multitasking into a manageable system, where each chosen day and each consciously chosen colour supports them at the right moment. For Cancer, a happy day always begins with the feeling that the space around them quietly confirms their decisions. Small things come together in a logical chain. People respond on time. Everything gets done without unnecessary rush. In 2026, this feeling is tied to specific numbers and a very clear colour palette that either supports Cancer's inner balance or, conversely, throws them off track. The most favourable numbers are 2, 4, 7, 9, 11, 16, 20, 22, 25, and 29. These are the days when it is worth not just hoping for luck, but consciously planning actions. Conversations about money, decisions about housing, important steps in relationships, taking care of health, changing work rules. Each of these dates has its own character, and if you take it into account, Cancer stops reacting to circumstances and begins to shape them. The 2nd and 22nd are days when Cancer is particularly good at sensing people and can build the right agreements. Here it is worth planning serious conversations with loved ones, meetings with partners, discussions of terms of cooperation, when not only facts are important, but also tone, atmosphere, and nuances. On these dates, Cancer is able to calmly voice their needs without exaggerating, but also without remaining silent. If the issue of a joint budget, division of household responsibilities, moving or changing the format of the relationship has been brewing for a long time, the 2nd or 22nd offers the least risk of conflict, provided that they do not shy away from dialogue. In the sphere of work, these days are suitable for gentle but effective negotiations with people with whom it is important to maintain trust. The 4th, 16th, and 20th are associated with the theme of stability, housing, family matters, long-term financial decisions. On these dates, it is easier for Cancer not to give in to emotions when it comes to money, property, repairs, and moving. This is when you should look at apartment options, negotiate rent, consider mortgage terms, and discuss large expenses that affect everyone with your family. If you need to systematize your budget, categorize your expenses and income, and analyze what takes up the most resources, the 4th, 16th, and 20th will give you a sober view without the usual internal vacillation between I want and I need. The 7th, 11th, 25th, and 29th are days of profound decisions and internal reboots. On these dates, Cancer can better see which habits, contacts, work formats, or communication really drain them and which ones support them. It is appropriate to plan an honest conversation with yourself. What to keep in your life and what to let go of, where to direct your emotional energy, and which topics to avoid. If there are questions that you constantly return to in your thoughts but do not take concrete action on, these numbers will allow you to stop procrastinating. In relationships, the 7th, 11th, 25th, and 29th can be the point where new rules are set or stories that have long since ceased to work are closed. The number 9 separately highlights the direction of active actions, short trips, meetings outside the home, visits to authorities, doctors, banks, launching projects where you need to take the first step and then systematically develop. On this day, it is important not to spread your activity across minor details, but to choose 2 or 3 key tasks and bring them to a logical stage. The 9th is also a good day to finally deal with accumulated tasks. Cancel unnecessary subscriptions, write letters that have been put off for months, collect documents, and create a clear system for things that were previously chaotic. Colors for Cancer. In 2026, work as a precise mood management tool. Cancer has a natural tendency to experience emotions deeply, and if the palette is chosen poorly, the day can easily sink. The basic shades that support them are milky, pearl white, soft silver, light blue, deep blue, emerald, dark green, delicate coral, pale pink, sand, and light grey. Milky, pearl, and sandy create a sense of security without making the space feel sterile. Light blue and deep blue help you focus without putting yourself in a rigid framework. Emerald and dark green give a sense of support, especially in financial and housing decisions. Coral and pale pink gently lift the mood without turning the day into an emotional roller coaster. On days when the key theme is people and agreements, the 2nd and 22nd, Cancers should use a combination of milky, pearl, and soft blue. This could be a light blue shirt, a milky sweater, a pearl scarf, and accessories in light grey-silver tones. This look is perceived as calm, reliable, and non-aggressive, which is important for serious conversations. The space where the meetings take place should also be supportive. A light-coloured table, a minimum of bright objects, 1 or 2 details in soft shades, such as a sand-coloured pillow or a light blue cup. These are not trifles, but signals to the nervous system. You can speak calmly, without a defensive posture. The 4th, 16th, and 20th, associated with stability and property, require deeper shades: dark green, emerald, dark blue. Cancerians should add them to their clothing when dealing with housing, contracts, and large purchases. For example, a dark green jacket, an emerald scarf, a dark blue cardigan, a dark green belt or shoes. When they look at contracts or spreadsheets, these colours keep them from making impulsive decisions based on emotions. At home, it is advisable to do at least a minimal amount of cleaning in areas related to money, the place where documents, wallet, and bill drawer are kept. If there is order and no random clutter, it is easier for Cancers to make thoughtful decisions. For the profound days of the 7th, 11th, 25th, and 29th, calm combinations of milky, light grey, soft silver, and deep blue are especially important. Bright accents are not needed here, as they provoke unnecessary emotional fluctuations at a time when clarity is needed. Clothing in light neutral shades without aggressive prints, a clean desk, and a screen with a minimalist background all create conditions in which thoughts do not float, but move in a given direction. If Cancer is planning conversations these days, where complex topics need to be discussed honestly, it is worth avoiding red, overly bright orange, and other loud colors. They will only increase tension instead of helping to reach an agreement. On the 9th, when the day calls for activity, movement, and decisive steps, the palette can be a little more dynamic, but without overloading. Light blue, dark blue, and sandy brown combinations work well here. For example, a light blue shirt or hoodie, dark blue jeans or pants, and a sandy brown backpack or jacket. This combination gives a sense of movement without creating an impression of chaos. If a visit to the bank, official institutions, or the doctor is planned for this day, Cancer looks collected and adequate in this image. It is easier for them to calmly explain their situation, ask the necessary questions, and not get lost in formalities. A separate area of color influence for Cancer in 2026 is the home space. This sign reacts strongly to the atmosphere in the home, and on happy days, it is especially important that the apartment or house does not conflict with their state of mind. In the bedroom, it is worth relying on soft palettes, milky, sandy, light blue, pearl, with small emerald or dark blue accents. If Cancer wakes up on a happy day and the first thing they see is calm colors without chaotic variegation, the brain tunes into an even rhythm. In the kitchen, where household and family issues are often resolved, it is useful to add a little warm coral or pale pink in small details: napkins, cups, towels. This lifts the mood and softens potential tensions in conversations. Cancer's desk in 2026 should not just be comfortable, but structured for their lucky days. The basic background should be light grey, milky, or natural wood, without excessive variegation. Only the most necessary items should be on the surface: a laptop, a notebook, a pen, and a glass of water. Nearby, there should be 1 or 2 items in colours that are strong for him: an emerald pen holder, a dark blue organizer, and a sand-coloured diary cover. It is important that on days when he plans to take serious steps, 4, 16, 20, 7, 25, 29, there are no accumulations of small items of different colours on the table. Souvenirs, old receipts, random pieces of paper create a feeling of overload and interfere with concentration. Digital space also matters. Cancerians should adjust the background of their phone and laptop to match the groups of lucky days. For the 2nd and 22nd, use images with light blue and milky tones, soft lighting, and simple shapes. This helps to set the mood for calm communication. For the 4th, 16th, and 20th, use images with deep blue, dark green, and emerald tones, which are associated with reliability and consistency. For the 7th, 11th, 25th, and 29th, minimalist scenes with lots of light and small saturated accents so that nothing distracts from your inner work. For the 9th, photos of roads, bridges, and urban architecture in calm blue and sandy tones without aggressive effects. When the background changes in advance, the brain receives a signal about which mode to work in. The financial sphere on Cancer's lucky days may cease to be a source of constant concern. The 4th, 16th, and 20th should be reserved for specific actions: calculating expenses and income, drawing up a budget, comparing different options, analyzing prices, reviewing contract terms. On these days, you can look at the numbers more dispassionately without turning every expense into an emotional drama. Clothing in dark green, emerald, and dark blue shades works as an internal reminder. Now is the time to act like a person who manages resources, not one who depends on them. The 2nd, 7th, 22nd, and 29th are more suitable for discussions: negotiations on payments, discussions of a joint budget, consultations with specialists, and seeking advice on investments or savings. In relationships, Cancer's lucky days give you the opportunity not only to respond to your partner's behavior, but also to set the tone yourself. The 2nd and 22nd are the best times for calm but frank conversations about feelings, expectations, and boundaries. It is important to be specific, not "you never," but it is important to me that, not "I'm tired of everything," but "it's hard for me when." Clothes in soft milky, pearl, pale pink, and sandy shades, a cozy atmosphere at home, and a minimum of external stimuli all create a background in which Cancer is less defensive and more explanatory. On the 7th, 11th, 25th, and 29th, it is appropriate to touch on more serious topics. Plans for the future, the format of relationships, everyone's responsibilities, decisions about joint or separate finances. Here, it is important not to impose your vision, but to voice it as the position of an adult. Another dimension of happy days is health. The 9th, 16th, and 25th are especially favourable for taking care of your body in a systematic way. On the 9th, you can focus on activity: a brisk walk, swimming, a short jog, a trip to a place with fresh air and the opportunity to move. Sportswear in light blue, sand, and dark blue shades does not overload the eyes and is associated with purity and lightness. On the 16th and 25th, it is better to set aside time for planning your routine, when to go to bed, how to distribute your meals, how often to take breaks from work. Clothes in muted green and milky tones make the mood calmer, and Cancer does not perceive these issues as pressure, but as caring for oneself. There are also combinations that Cancer should consciously avoid in 2026, especially on happy days. An excessive amount of bright reds, acid greens, neon pinks, and aggressive contrasts easily trigger inner anxiety in their case. If, on a day of important decisions or negotiations, they find themselves in an environment where everything is screaming with colour, there is an increased risk that they will shut down or, conversely, react too emotionally. Therefore, even if circumstances do not allow you to change your surroundings, clothing can serve as a counterbalance, neutral, calm, deep shades that do not contribute to the overall tension. To prevent all this from dissolving into theory, Cancers should build a simple system for themselves. For example, choose 4 key days per month: 1 for budget and finances, 4 or 16, 1 for relationships, 2 or 22, 1 for internal analysis, 7 or 25, and 1 for activity and travel, 9 or 29. Each day has its own colour code, its own basic ritual, its own type of tasks. On financial day, dark green, emerald, tables, numbers, specific decisions. Relationship day is milky, sandy, a quiet evening with conversation. Analysis day is light grey, deep blue, a notebook with answers to honest questions. Activity day is light blue, sandy, movement, completion of accumulated tasks. When Cancer begins to consciously use its happiest days and colours in 2026, life ceases to look like a succession of random ups and downs. Where before he simply waited for things to get easier, there is now an opportunity to take steps on his own at the right moment. Where they previously relied only on emotions, a specific calendar of actions emerges. And it is precisely because of this combination of dates and colours that they get a chance not only to experience events, but to build a structure in which their sensitivity becomes not a weakness, but a precise tool for choosing the right time, the right decisions, and the right environment. The Leo representative enters 2026 with a clear request: less randomness, more controlled success on specific days and under specific conditions. They need a year in which they are not just lucky, but can see the logic: when to come to the fore, when to demand payment for their work, when to talk to partners, when to take a break and work on a new level. This logic is set by numbers that Leo should treat as tools: 1, 3, 5, 8, 10, 13, 17, 19, 21, 24, 28, and 30. It is on these dates that he feels a sense of inner composure, adequate self-confidence, and readiness to show himself in a way that brings not only impressions, but also concrete results. The 1st, 10th, 17th, and 24th are the days when it is most expedient for Leo to work on financial issues, status, and career leaps. On these dates, his natural desire to be first is perceived not as a demonstration, but as an argument. If you need to ask for a raise, sign a new contract, set conditions that are beneficial in the long term, or launch your own project, these are the dates to prioritize. Here, Leo is able to talk about his value directly, without unnecessary apologies, but also without rude pressure. It is important that he does not waste energy on minor conflicts and disputes during these days, but keeps his focus only on strategic steps. The 3rd, 5th, 8th, 13th, 19th, and 28th are more conducive to publicity, contacts, and impressions. These are days for presentations, speeches, entering new circles, and important meetings with people who can open doors further. It is appropriate to plan interviews, participation in events, video recordings, negotiations with partners, meetings with clients, and first dates on these days. On these dates, Leo appears more charismatic, their voice tone is perceived as more convincing, and the way they present information is memorable. If you have a choice of when to show the results of your work or present a new idea, it is worth tying it to these days. The 21st and 30th are calmer but more profound in nature. They are not suitable for show, but for rethinking and planning. On such dates, Leo finds it easier to sit down and analyze which projects really lead to growth and which simply take up time, which contacts are useful and which are just a habit, what he wants to have in a year in terms of finances, status, and lifestyle. This is where it is worth sorting out your goals, reviewing your responsibilities, and changing the structure of your day. If any decisions have been put off for a long time, the 21st and 30th create minimal internal resistance to finally making up your mind. The colors that support Leo in 2026 work in conjunction with these dates. Their natural need for the spotlight and recognition requires not only brightness, but also a carefully selected palette. Strong shades for them are rich, warm yellow, amber, honey, terracotta, deep orange, wine red, dark blue, deep sapphire, graphite, warm milky, soft sand, and restrained golden details. Yellow and amber raise the tone and emphasize leadership qualities. Terracotta and wine red add a sense of seriousness. Dark blue and graphite maintain structure and discipline. Milk and sand soften tension when it becomes too much. On days associated with money and status, 1, 10, 17, 24. Leos should build their image around a combination of dark blue or graphite with warm yellow or golden accents. For example, a deep blue jacket or shirt, graphite pants, a watch with a metal or leather strap in warm shades, a belt with a laconic buckle, a pen with metal details, a briefcase or bag with a restrained design. This is a signal to those around them. They are dealing with a person who is aware of their own value and knows how to talk about it, not only emotionally, but also rationally. If meetings with those who influence their salary are planned for these days, this image will help Leo be remembered as a reliable partner, not just a charismatic conversationalist. On the 3rd, 5th, 8th, 13th, 19th, and 28th, when publicity and contacts are in the spotlight, warm yellow, honey, amber, and terracotta shades combined with a milky or sandy background work well. A t-shirt or shirt in a pleasant yellow tone, a terracotta sweater, a honey-coloured dress, amber jewellery, and a sand-coloured jacket are not just bright, but deliberately noticeable. It is important to avoid kitsch. Too much glitter, flashy prints, and a chaotic mix of colours work against Leo, creating the impression that he is trying to compensate for his appearance with external effects. These days, it is better to stick to the principle of one main warm accent and 2 or 3 calm supporting colours. The 21st and 30th, which are designated for planning, require a more restrained palette. Graphite, dark blue, warm, milky, sandy, with small splashes of wine red or terracotta in the details. Clothing can be simple. A plain dark-coloured shirt, comfortable pants, without excessive decoration, but with high-quality fabric and clean lines. This shifts the focus from form to content. If Leo is working at a desk on such days, it is important that there is no visual noise on the work surface. A few items in a neutral palette, a notebook, a pen, a gadget. That's enough. The task of these days is not to show, but to structure. Leo's workspace in 2026 should reinforce his strong days. It is desirable to keep the desk in warm but restrained tones. A wooden surface, a graphite or dark grey chair, a few accents in the form of yellow, terracotta, or wine red details. For example, a pen holder, diary cover, photo frame, mouse or mouse pad. On financial decision days, 1, 10, 17, 24, only leave items on the desk that are directly related to the task at hand. Documents, calculator, notebook, laptop. On days of publicity, 3, 5, 8, 13, 19, 28, you can add items related to visual presentation to your workspace. Scripts, video plans, lists of topics. Digital space also has a direct impact. It is useful for Leo to divide the background of his phone and laptop into groups of days. For the 1st, 10th, 17th, and 24th, use images in deep blue, graphite, and warm golden yellow tones, with clear lines that resemble structure and frames. For the 3rd, 5th, 8th, 13th, 19th, and 28th, there are lighter scenes with a predominance of honey, terracotta, and sandy shades, wide spaces, and soft lighting. For the 21st and 30th, minimalist compositions with a lot of free space, a few strong splashes of colour on a calm background so as not to overload the attention. If these backgrounds change ahead of time, Leo receives a signal from the system before the start of the day about which mode to work in. In terms of money, the most successful days for Leo in 2026 are the 1st, 10th, 17th, and 24th. On these dates, it is worth planning negotiations on rates, reviewing contract terms, launching new sources of income, discussing interest rates, determining prices for your services, and consulting with financial experts. On such days, Leo is less inclined to prove something to someone for the sake of emotions and focuses more on practical results. It is useful to have a separate financial notebook or file that you open on these days to record your income, expenses, financial goals, and deadlines. Gradually, a clear connection forms in your mind. There is a specific date when you deal only with finances, not with chaotic tasks. It is best to disclose contacts and publicity on the 3rd, 5th, 8th, 13th, 19th, and 28th. Here, it is worth arranging broadcasts, speeches, collaborations, presentations, interviews, and meetings with people on whom your reputation and future opportunities depend. On these days, it is important for Leo not to overload themselves with everyday trifles that can be postponed to other dates. If the day is stretched out with small tasks, its potential for making a big impression is lost. Therefore, it is better to determine 1 or 2 key points in advance. For example, a speech plus an important meeting, recording a video, clues agreeing on terms of cooperation. The 21st and 30th are good days for strategic thinking. No grand gestures are needed here. What matters is the ability to honestly answer the questions. What really works and what was just for show? What part of your time brings in income and what part simply eats it up? Which people help you move forward and which ones just consume your resources? On such days, Leo should minimize external stimuli as much as possible. Minimize social media, remove background noise, and leave only those with whom it really makes sense to talk. Colors are simple, tasks are specific, and the notebook is open. It is on these dates that decisions are made that then make other happy days more productive. In relationships, the days of positive dynamics for Leo are the 3rd, 5th, 8th, 13th, 19th, and 28th. On these dates, it is easier to give compliments, show attention, plan joint outings, and talk about desires without feeling the need to defend yourself. If there is a need for a romantic gesture, it will be perceived more naturally at that time. Clothes in warm yellow, honey, and terracotta shades create the image of a person who is comfortable to be around. For more serious conversations about responsibility, plans, boundaries, and rules, the 21st and 30th are suitable. Here it is worth choosing a more restrained palette and speaking specifically, without hints and innuendo. In terms of health and energy, the 8th, 17th, 19th, 24th, and 28th provide Leo with the best foundation for working on their body and routine. On the 8th and 19th, it is easy to start a new form of physical activity: fitness, swimming, walking, sports, any movement that energizes rather than exhausts. Sportswear in rich, warm shades, combined with dark blue or graphite, boosts energy and does not create a feeling of everydayness. The 17th and 24th are better suited for analysis. Check your well-being, get tested, count your hours of sleep, determine which foods are not suitable, and how to change your diet. A restrained palette in clothing and surroundings is useful here. Less visual noise, more calm colors, so that decisions are rational. Certain color combinations are not recommended for Leo in 2026, especially on happy days. An excess of bright, acidic tones, neon shades, and aggressive contrasts, acid green with bright pink, overly flashy orange with sharp black, creates an impression of overload. Then his natural charisma is perceived as tension rather than strength. It is especially undesirable to overload the image on days of negotiations and important meetings. If Leo wants to stand out, one warm accent against a background of restrained basic colors is enough, rather than the entire spectrum in one outfit. For the Happy Days plus colors system to work on more than a one-off basis, Leo should make it a routine. For example, choose 4 key days each month. 1 for finances, 1, 10 or 17. 1 for publicity, 5, 13 or 19. 1 for strategic analysis, 21 or 30. And 1 for health and energy, 8, 24 or 28. Each day has its own set of actions and its own palette. On financial days, use deep dark shades plus restrained warm metallic details, clear numbers, and records. On publicity days, use warm yellows, honeys, terracottas, and a thoughtful presentation of yourself. On analysis days, dark blue. Graphite, milky, silence, and specific answers to your own questions. On health days, a combination of energetic and restrained colors with an emphasis on comfort. When Leo begins to treat his time and environment this way, in 2026, his days will no longer resemble a series of random bursts of activity. Each date in his set becomes a fulcrum, one for earning, another for recognition, a third for reviewing his course, and a fourth for maintaining his resources. The palette of clothing, interior design, and digital space is adjusted to these tasks. And instead of relying solely on mood, Leo receives a clear tool, a calendar and colors that work for his ambitions, reputation, finances, and well-being. For Virgo, 2026 offers a chance to finally stop being exhausted by other people's chaos and work according to their own clear schedule, where even luck obeys logic. Her happiest days do not look like sudden luck. They are dates when discipline, attention to detail, and pragmatism bring maximum returns. The main set of supporting numbers for this sign is 4, 6, 9, 11, 15, 18, 20, 22, 25, and 27. On these days, it is easier to concentrate, see things through to the end, find mistakes in other people's and your own plans, agree on specific terms rather than in words, and turn small steps into noticeable results. If Virgo ties key actions to these dates, the year will cease to resemble an endless rush. The 4th, 11th, 20th, and 27th are best for structure and long-term stability. On these days, it is worth doing things that set the framework for the whole year: budgeting, systematizing documents, reviewing projects, distributing workloads, and revising schedules. On these dates, Virgos have a particularly keen eye for details and mistakes. They see where money is leaking, where tasks are duplicated, and where time is wasted. This is the right time to build a financial plan, write down steps for professional growth, and decide which tasks to abandon and which to delegate. If you need to sort through old files, folders, cabinets, and contracts, these are the days when you can tackle the task at hand without getting overwhelmed. The 6th, 15th, and 25th are associated with work processes that require meticulousness: reports, contracts, texts, calculations, technical tasks, and quality control. On these dates, Virgo is able to work long and hard without losing accuracy. If her activities are related to analytics, accounting, document management, legal or technical fields, it is worth transferring the most responsible stages here. These are the days when she can calmly check what others find boring or good enough. Even if the field is creative, the 6th, 15th, and 25th are ideal for proofreading, structuring, and correcting flaws in what has already been created. The 9th, 18th, and 22nd bring a different kind of luck, related to people, health, and everyday life. On these days, it is easier to find the right specialists, negotiate with colleagues, talk to management, resolve organizational issues at home, undergo examinations, adjust your routine, and change your diet. Here, Virgo is able not only to notice that something is wrong, but also to come to clear decisions: which doctor to go to, what to add or remove from the menu, what to review in daily habits. If health-related issues have been brewing for a long time, these dates should not be neglected. To make these days work to their fullest, it is important to reinforce them with the right colors. Virgo's palette in 2026 is not about flashiness for flashiness' sake. It works as a tool for focus. The main shades that really help are light beige, cream, linen, light grey, graphite, olive, soft grey-green, pastel green, dark green, muted dark blue, sand, and soft coffee. As accents, deep dark purple and dark burgundy in small doses. Beige, cream, and linen provide calm and purity. Light grey and graphite hold the frame. Olive and grey-green help you stay calm when the work is delicate and responsible. Dark blue and dark green provide depth of concentration. On the 4th, 11th, 20th, and 27th, when Virgo is working with structure and long-term decisions, the most effective look will be a combination of light grey, graphite, and linen beige with small dark green accents. For example, a light grey shirt or sweater, graphite pants, a belt or shoes in a neutral shade, a green notebook or phone case. This combination helps the brain not to get bogged down in details, but to focus on key figures and facts. If you need to work on a budget, development plan, or analysis of results during these days, a palette without sharp contrasts removes unnecessary emotionality and provides calm sobriety. On the 6th, 15th, and 25th, it is advisable to emphasize purity and laboratory composure in your image. Cream, light beige, milky, light grey, pastel green. These are days when accuracy is important, and your eyes should not tire from what they see. If the clothing is neutral with soft transitions, Virgo's eyes will be less tired from contrasts, and attention will remain on the document, table, code, or layout for longer. Even small items, rulers, bookmarks, pens, can be kept in the same color scheme. Then the desk is perceived as an extension of thinking rather than a source of visual noise. 9, 18, and 22, which are responsible for people, health, and everyday life, require a combination of warm and calm shades: sand, coffee, olive, cream, and soft grey-green. This is a good background for meetings with doctors, consultations, discussions about routines, and negotiations with loved ones about everyday issues. Such a palette creates the impression of a person who does not dramatize, but thinks pragmatically. If you are planning to discuss schedules, responsibilities, and the distribution of duties, clothing in these colors subconsciously relieves tension and reduces the risk of misunderstandings. Much of Virgo's luck in 2026 will come from her desk. That is why it should be an extension of her character. Functional, restrained, without unnecessary decoration. The basic background should be linen, light beige, or light grey. The tabletop should be without colourful patterns, preferably with a smooth surface. Only items that are used daily should be placed on it: a laptop, a notebook, a pen, a lamp, and a glass of water. Individual accents are an organizer or stand in graphite, dark green, or dark blue. On lucky days 4, 6, 11, 15, 20, 25, and 27, it is especially important that random pieces of paper, receipts, and small items of different colors do not accumulate on the table. If they are there, the day begins with a quick review, and this already works for luck because it frees up your attention. Virgo's digital space also needs a structured approach. It is useful to divide the background on your phone and laptop into groups of days. For the 4th, 11th, 20th, and 27th, use images dominated by beige, grey, and graphite tones. A desk, a laptop, minimalist interiors, simple geometric shapes. For the 6th, 15th, and 25th, use light backgrounds with a linen texture, pastel green details, and a minimum of elements to give your eyes a rest. For the 9th, 18th, and 22nd, images of natural scenes, forest, path, park, room, with plants in olive and grey-green shades. If the background changes in advance, the mind adjusts much faster to the way of thinking of a particular day. Morning rituals on Virgo's lucky days should be simple but consistent. No long, complicated practices, but clear logic. On the 4th, 11th, 20th, and 27th, start the day with a quick review of your tasks for the week or month. What to finish, what to postpone, what to give up. In a notebook or planner, write down 3 key points that you must do today. Then spend 10 to 15 minutes organizing your workspace. This is not wasted time, but an investment in ensuring that your thinking does not stumble over chaos. On the 6th, 15th, and 25th, it's best to start the morning with tasks that require precision. Checking email, responding to important letters, proofreading documents, and briefly analyzing figures. On the 9th, 18th, and 22nd, take care of your body, drink water, do some light exercise, and eat a well-planned breakfast without experimenting. In the financial sphere, Virgo's lucky days can be used to ensure that money ceases to be a constant source of tension. On the 4th, 11th, 20th, and 27th, it is appropriate to engage in planning. Keep a table of income and expenses. Analyze which items can be reduced, what should be increased, how much should be set aside, and what financial goals are relevant. These are days for dry numbers without drama. The 6th, 15th, and 25th are more suitable for control and verification. Checking payments, clarifying conditions, reviewing contract terms, and monitoring debts and obligations. The 9th, 18th, and 22nd are helpful for talking about money with people, discussing rates, payment for work, terms of cooperation, and household budgets with loved ones. In relationships, this combination of dates and colours helps Virgos be less nervous and more explanatory. The 9th, 18th, and 22nd are the best times to talk about shared living, routines, responsibilities, and cost sharing. Clothes in warm but restrained shades, sand, coffee, olive, create a background against which Virgos appear practical rather than strict. On these days, it is important to speak specifically. Not, "Everything annoys me, but it's hard for me when." Not, "Your approach is wrong, but let's try it this way." The 4th, 11th, 20th, and 27th are good days for talking about long-term plans. Where to live, how to organize joint work, what projects to do together, how to build a career for each person. It is worth avoiding emotional claims and speaking in terms of tasks and solutions. Health and routine are a separate area where Virgo's lucky days can make a real difference. The 9th, 18th, and 22nd are suitable for starting new habits, changing your diet, starting regular walks, introducing a stable sleep schedule, making a doctor's appointment, choosing basic tests. If Virgo starts a new routine on these days, the likelihood that it will take root is much higher. The 6th, 15th, and 25th can be set aside for monitoring, weighing, measuring, recording well-being, reviewing what works and what doesn't. Clothing in pastel green, cream, and light grey shades on such days reminds her that taking care of her body is as important a task as any other, and not something secondary. There are also colour combinations that are best not to emphasize in 2026, especially on Virgo's strong days. An excess of bright red, acid yellow, neon shades, or aggressive prints creates a feeling of internal noise when the brain is already busy with details. If she wears something too flashy on a day of important decisions, her attention is partly spent on fighting overload rather than on the task at hand. It is especially undesirable for the desk to be cluttered with colourful trinkets on these dates. Bright advertising leaflets, souvenirs, packaging, random items. If it is impossible to get rid of them permanently, happy days can begin by putting everything unnecessary into one closed box. To ensure that the Lucky Days plus Colours system does not remain just a beautiful description, Divi should turn it into a specific tool. For example, choose 4 main reference days each month. 1 for budgeting and financial planning, 4 or 20. 1 for a thorough review of affairs, 11 or 27. 1 for specific work tasks and checks, 6 or 15. 1 for health and everyday life, 9 or 18. For each day, there is a specific combination of colours in clothing and space, a set of standard actions, and a block of time without interruptions. When this is repeated, the brain stops perceiving planning as just another task and begins to perceive it as a natural rhythm. As a result, 2026 ceases to be a series of exhausting days for Virgo, where she constantly puts out fires and cleans up other people's mistakes. Thanks to carefully selected dates and a well-thought-out palette, each happy day works as an amplifier. 4, 11, 20, 27 provide stability. 6, 15, 25 ensure accuracy. 9, 18, 22 support health and relationships. Space and clothing do not distract, but help to focus. Where there used to be a feeling that everything was held together only by her control, a logical calendar appears that unloads the mind. And this is how Virgo in 2026 turns her attention to detail into a major advantage rather than a source of exhaustion. Those born under the sign of Libra in 2026 will notice a simple pattern. The most successful events do not happen by chance, but on very specific days, and they unfold best when they coincide with the right colors in clothing and space. This is a year when intuition and rationality can work together if you don't ignore the calendar. The main set of lucky numbers for Libras is as follows: 2, 6, 8, 11, 14, 17, 20, 23, 26, and 29. On these days, it is easier to negotiate, make profitable deals, set priorities in your personal life, make financial decisions, change your work schedule, and stabilize your inner state. The 2nd, 11th, and 20th have the strongest influence on relationships and partnerships in a broad sense: personal relationships, working alliances, joint projects, situations where the balance of interests is more important than personal ambitions. On these days, Libras feel more clearly what they and the other party need and can look for solutions that are beneficial to both. This is the best time to discuss terms of cooperation, resolve conflicts, have honest conversations with your partner about expectations, and adjust the rules in your relationship. If you have long needed to discuss money, everyday life, and joint plans with your partner, the 2nd, 11th, and 20th are the least risky days for sharp reactions, provided that Libras speak specifically, without hints. The 6th, 14th, and 26th are good for financial stability and practical decisions. These are the days to use for budgeting, reviewing expenses, negotiating payments, agreeing on new rates, and choosing insurance, banking, or service products. During this period, Libras are less doubtful and less idealistic, and more focused on numbers and conditions. If you need to decide whether to take on additional work, change the format of cooperation, purchase a subscription, invest in training or technology, these dates will give you a calmer, more sober view. The 8th, 17th, 23rd, and 29th create conditions for personal growth, learning, and course correction. On such days, Libras can better see their life from the outside. Which habits lead to exhaustion? Which relationships are no longer supportive? Which formats of work or leisure are no longer suitable? This is a good time to plan new directions for development, training programs, changes in work style, relocations, and reformatting your lifestyle. If there is a feeling that everything is based on compromises that have long ceased to be comfortable, these days help to abandon old patterns without destroying what is truly valuable. The colors of 2026 for Libras reinforce these dates and work as a tool, not just as decoration. The basic palette that supports their character: sky blue, soft mint, light grey, pearl white, powder pink, peach, light beige, milky, delicate lavender, dark blue, and deep emerald in the details. Sky blue and mint relieve tension and allow you to think more calmly. Light grey and white add structure. Powder and peach soften communication. Lavender helps you not to dwell on minor insults. Dark blue and emerald create a sense of support when you need to make important decisions. On partnership days, the 2nd, 11th, and 20th, Teresa's are best suited to a combination of sky blue, soft mint, light grey, and pearl white. This could be a sky blue shirt or sweater, light grey pants or skirt, white or cream outerwear, and a mint scarf or accessory. This look is perceived by those around you as calm, open, and ready for dialogue. When discussing complex topics, these colors help you avoid harsh gestures and words, but at the same time, you don't have to compromise your position. If the meeting takes place in the office or at home, it is helpful to provide a background in the same shades: light walls, one or two neutral details, and a minimum of bright, distracting objects. The 6th, 14th, and 26th, which are associated with money and practical matters, require more structured colors: light gray, dark blue, deep emerald, light beige, and milky. For clothing, this could be a dark blue jacket, light grey pants, beige or milky details, an emerald accessory, a watch strap, folder or phone case. This palette sets a clear mood. Today is a day of numbers, conditions, and specifics. If you need to negotiate payment, agree on a contract or invoices on these days, it is important to stick to simple lines without flashy prints. Your image should emphasize that you are not a dreamer, but a person who understands the real value of time and your services. On the 8th, 17th, 23rd, and 29th, when the focus shifts to internal decisions and development, combinations of lavender, sky blue, peach, and light grey work well. These are days when Libras need to be honest with themselves, not with the expectations of others. Clothes in soft shades, without sharp contrasts, help to switch from constant comparison with others to analysis of one's own goals. On such days, it is right to sit down with a notebook and make lists of changes that are really needed, without pathos and self-blame. It is good to have a space with minimal visual noise nearby. Simple furniture, calm colours, a clean table surface. Therese's workplace in 2026 should support their main request: a balance between aesthetics and functionality. The table at which they work should preferably be in light, calm colours: a white or milky surface, a light grey or beige chair, one or two accent details in sky blue or mint. If there is a flower in an emerald pot or a lavender notebook on the table, it already creates a feeling of a controlled, rather than random, space. On lucky days 2, 6, 8, 11, 14, 17, 20, 23, 26, and 29. It is especially important that the table surface is free of unnecessary items, random receipts, advertising brochures, souvenirs that serve no purpose. The digital space of Libras in 2026 should also be synchronized with groups of lucky days. For the 2nd, 11th, and 20th, backgrounds with soft sky blue and mint transitions, smooth lines, and lots of light are appropriate. This could be an image of the sky, light clouds, minimalist architecture in light tones. For the 6th, 14th, and 26th, backgrounds dominated by dark blue, light grey, and emerald. Abstractions, city panoramas, laconic geometric figures. For the 8th, 17th, 23rd, and 29th, choose a combination of lavender, peach, and light grey without aggressive contrasts. If such backgrounds are changed on the eve of the corresponding day, the brain will quickly switch to the desired mode: negotiations, money, or internal work. In the financial sphere, Libras often delay decisions because they try to consider all possible scenarios. Lucky days on the 6th, 14th, and 26th allow you to reduce this gap between thought and action. On these dates, it is worth consciously planning, reviewing contract terms, consulting with an accountant or financial advisor, trying to negotiate a different rate, recalculating your personal budget, and forming a reserve. A mandatory element should be recording: a table, notes in a notebook, a simple but clear list of decisions. If you add to this restrained clothing in dark blue, light grey, and beige tones, the day takes on a businesslike, collected character. Relationships are one of the key themes of the year for Libras. and the lucky days of the 2nd, 11th, 20th, 23rd, and 29th help to move them from the realm of unspoken expectations to the realm of agreements. On these dates, it is worth planning important conversations with your partner about everyday life, money, future steps, boundaries, and the division of responsibilities. It is important to choose a form of communication without accusations, focusing on phrases such as "I need," "I expect," and "I am ready." Soft colors in clothing, powder, sky blue, peach, milky, reduce internal tension and do not provoke a defensive reaction in your opponent. On such days, it is not worth postponing topics that have been bothering you for a long time until next time, because right now is the best chance to reach a decision without unnecessary conflict. In terms of health, it is best to use the 8th, 17th, and 26th. These are the days when Libras are able to perceive information about their condition without panic or ignorance. They can calmly accept the doctor's recommendations, adjust their sleep, diet, and exercise regimen, and write down a plan for examinations or procedures. On these dates, it is worth avoiding excessively strong coffee, random snacks, and sleepless nights. Clothes in mint, sky blue, and light grey tones, walks in the fresh air, and simple food without extremes are not trifles, but a real way to reduce the overload of the nervous system. Morning rituals on lucky days in 2026 can become a foundation for Libras that stabilizes their entire day. If the calendar shows the 2nd, 11th, or 20th, it is advisable to start the morning with a brief review of relationships. Who needs to be contacted? With whom agreements need to be made? And what issues have accumulated in a couple or family? You can write down 3 specific conversations that need to happen today and not get distracted by small talk. If it's the 6th, 14th, or 26th, it's worth dedicating the morning to finances and work stuff, checking accounts, a quick analysis of expenses, planning tasks that bring in income. If it is the 8th, 17th, 23rd, or 29th, it is advisable to start the day with questions to yourself. What exactly am I changing? What no longer suits me? What is the next step in my education or development? There are also colours that Teresas should be careful with in 2026, especially on the strongest days. An excess of bright red, neon pink, acid green, or aggressive black blocks without light accents creates internal discomfort. Then any conversation is perceived as more tense, and negotiations turn into confrontation. If the external environment is too contrasting and noisy, clothing can be used as a counterbalance. Sky blue, mint, light grey, and beige work as stabilizers. This is especially important on days when you need to negotiate money or rules in a relationship. In order for the happy days plus colours system to cease to be just a description and become a working tool, Teresas should choose several reference days for themselves each month. For example, the 2nd or 11th could be the main day for relationships and partnership agreements. The 6th or 14th could be the day for budget and financial decisions. And the 17th or 23rd could be the day for personal analysis and choosing a direction for development. For each day, there is a specific list of actions. A few hours without distractions, and a specific color palette for clothing and the work desk. If this rhythm is repeated, the feeling of constant uncertainty diminishes and is replaced by an understanding of when to act and when it is better not to force anything. As a result, for Libras, 2026 no longer looks like an endless struggle between I want and I must. The happiest days become temporal pillars where decisions about relationships, money, work, and health are made without unnecessary internal fluctuations. Colors cease to be a random choice from the closet and become a working tool that supports the chosen course. Where there used to be a lot of doubts, There is now structure. A calendar with important dates, a well-thought-out palette, clear actions. And it is in this combination that Libras can use their year in the most thoughtful way, without sacrificing either balance or quality of life. Scorpio. In 2026, Scorpio will have a year where energy is no longer wasted on random conflicts, but is tied to specific dates and clear decisions. During this period, the logic of the right day plus the right color plus the right action works best. Then the internal pressure will not destroy the environment, but will give a leap forward in money, status, relationships, and health. For this sign, a set of lucky numbers works especially well. 1, 4, 7, 9, 12, 16, 18, 21, 24, 27, and 30. These are not abstract, lucky days, but points where it is easier to break through resistance, resolve complex issues, change the rules of the game, and turn tension into results. The 1st, 9th, 18th, and 27th are days of direct power. It is then that Scorpio is able to enter into the most difficult negotiations, touch on topics that everyone avoids, and move forward with projects that have been stalled for months. On these dates, it is worth planning key conversations with management, tough negotiations on terms of cooperation, and the launch of new areas that require courage. These are days when internal control is as close as possible to external influence. If they come to the meeting prepared, well argued, and calm, the chance of moving the situation in the right direction increases significantly. It is important that Scorpios do not get caught up in petty conflicts on these days, because then their strength will be scattered. The 4th, 12th, 21st, and 30th are linked to finances, property, and structural decisions. There are fewer emotions and more dry logic. This is the best time to calculate, sign, and record. These are good days for signing agreements, adjusting debt obligations, reviewing loans, negotiating installments, optimizing expenses, and developing a financial plan. On these dates, Scorpio sees numbers without illusions, hopes less for somehow it will work out, and is more clearly aware of where money is actually flowing out of their life. If you need to instantly put your wallet, accounts, and payment habits in order, these numbers offer the least internal resistance. The 7th, 16th, and 24th are associated with people, unions, relationships, trust, and boundaries. These are the days when Scorpios can make the most accurate adjustments in their interactions with partners, colleagues, and loved ones. This is the time to discuss rules, change formats of cooperation, set clear boundaries, and decide with whom to continue the journey and with whom not to. If you have long had questions about someone's behavior, these dates allow you to discuss them as objectively as possible, without unnecessary drama. This is not about softness, but about honesty without wasting energy. The 12th and 21st are a couple of days that stand out. They are on the border between money and inner transformation. On these days, it is especially easy to rethink not only your budget, but also your lifestyle. It is advisable to make decisions about changing your schedule, work format, location, and workload distribution. If Scorpio has long understood that they live in a state of constant struggle, these days give them a chance to switch to a mode of controlled strategy. The color palette for Scorpio in 2026 is not about spectacular displays, but about concentration and effective pressure. Strong shades for this sign: deep black, graphite, rich burgundy, wine red, dark plum, dark purple, deep dark blue, emerald, dark green, cool steel grey, pure white as a contrast, as well as dark metallic accents, the color of weapons, not jewelry. Black and graphite concentrate, burgundy and wine add weight to words. Dark blue and emerald keep a cool head. White provides a clear line where chaos ends and order begins. on days of direct power, the 1st, 9th, 18th, and 27th. Scorpios should build their image around black, graphite, burgundy, and dark blue. This could be a black or graphite shirt, a dark blue jacket, a burgundy sweater or accessory, a dark belt, a watch with a metal strap, and shoes without decorative noise. Such an outfit sends an internal signal. Now is not the time to speak in hints, but to formulate your position directly. If you have negotiations planned with people who have real influence over money or status, dark but clean shades in your clothing clearly establish your role at the table. Not as someone to be reckoned with, but as someone to be negotiated with. On the 4th, 12th, 21st, and 30th, when the focus is on finances and property, a combination of dark green, emerald, graphite, and white works well. Emerald and dark green set the tone of, I look at resources as an owner, not as someone who is given leftovers. Graphite maintains discipline, while white adds transparency. Clothing for such days should not be ostentatious. The quality of the fabric, a clear cut, and a minimum of unnecessary details are important. In this image, Scorpio reminds itself that every decision about money is an investment either in freedom or in new restrictions. The 7th, 16th, and 24th, which are tied to relationships, require a slightly softer but still deep spectrum. Dark plum, dark purple, and deep dark blue, combined with white or light grey, are appropriate here. These shades allow you to talk about complex things without unnecessary aggression, but also without giving up your own demands. If you are planning to talk about boundaries, trust, rules, or communication formats, this combination is enough to keep control of the tone. Any bright, flashy accents that distract attention should be removed these days. Scorpio's workspace in 2026 should be logical. Minimal randomness, maximum control. The ideal desktop is dark wood or graphite, without colourful patterns. The chair is dark, with clean lines. 1 or 2 accent details, an emerald organizer, a burgundy notebook, a dark blue folder. On the table, especially on lucky days, there should be nothing that does not directly contribute to the tasks of the day. Unnecessary small items, souvenirs, random pieces of paper only serve to overload your attention. On days 1, 4, 9, 12, 18, 21, 27, and 30, it is worth starting the day with a quick review of your desk. Anything that is not needed should be physically removed from view. Digital space is also important. It is advisable to divide the background of a Scorpio's phone and laptop into groups of days. For the 1st, 9th, 18th, and 27th, use dark backgrounds, black, graphite, dark blue, 1 or 2 clear lines, or simple geometric shapes. This is a reminder that the day is not for entertainment, but for difficult but useful steps. For the 4th, 12th, 21st, and 30th, abstract designs in emerald, dark green, white, and graphite shades with a sense of structure. For the 7th, 16th, and 24th, images dominated by deep blue, plum, and white, without excessive decoration. Changing the background on the eve of the desired day turns on the desired mode even before you start working. Mornings on happy Scorpio days should be as structured as possible. On the 1st, 9th, 18th, and 27th, it is advisable to write down 3 key steps that require courage immediately after waking up. Who to call, what offer to make, what issue to resolve. Then, briefly organize your space. Close unnecessary tabs in your browser, remove distracting apps from your phone screen, and place only the necessary documents on your desk. On the 4th, 12th, 21st, and 30th, devote your morning to numbers and paperwork. Write down all your mandatory payments, review your expenses, and plan which financial decisions to make today. On the 7th, 16th, and 24th, think through 3 conversations that affect the balance in your relationships and determine the order in which they should take place. The financial sphere for Scorpio in 2026 will benefit from strict adherence to dates. The 4th, 12th, 21st, and 30th should be used as budget reference points. One of these days is for reviewing income and expenses. Another is for working with debts and obligations. The third is for planning investments and large purchases. And the fourth is for reviewing terms of cooperation and rates. If you record your decisions in writing on these dates, rather than leaving them in your head, the effect will be noticeable in a few months. Random expenses will be reduced, risky steps will become controllable, and financial conversations will cease to be chaotic. In relationships, the lucky days of the 7th, 16th, and 24th allow Scorpios to use their character not as a weapon, but as a quality filter. On these days, it is appropriate to talk about what is acceptable and what is not, to clarify rules, to discuss expectations, and to set boundaries. It is important to avoid ambiguous wording. Specifics always work better. Instead of general phrases, use clear, descriptive ones. For example, instead of "I don't like your behavior," say "I find it unacceptable when." Clothing should be restrained, but not cold. Dark blue, plum, white without excessive shine. If Scorpio looks too harsh on this day, lots of black, metal, sharp contrasts, the interlocutor will subconsciously prepare for confrontation. Health and energy on lucky days are also subject to control. The 9th, 18th, and 27th are suitable for more intense workouts, training that requires bursts of speed, short but powerful sessions, sports that require concentration. Sportswear in black, graphite, and dark blue shades reminds us that exercise is not a chaotic outburst of emotions, but controlled work. The 4th, 12th, and 21st are best reserved for medical issues, consultations, tests, and preventive care planning. Clothing should be simpler, lighter, without aggressive colours, so as not to create additional tension. On the 7th and 16th, pay attention to sleep and rest, limiting nighttime information noise. It is important for Scorpios to remember that there are colour combinations that work against them in 2026, especially on the strongest days. An excess of chaotic bright shades, acidic lime green, neon pink, excessive white without contrast with depth, creates an impression of internal instability. If, on a day of serious decisions, the space around you looks like an advertising stand, your attention will be scattered and your reactions will become more abrupt. Therefore, even if the circumstances cannot be changed externally, it is worth using clothing as a counterbalance. A dark, collected, laconic silhouette. For the day plus colour system to really work and not remain a theory, Scorpios should choose a few strict guidelines for themselves. For example, the 1st or 9th is a day for decisive action in career and business. The 4th or 12th is a day for finances and documents. The 7th or 16th is a day for relationships and boundaries. The 21st or 30th is a day for strategic review of life as a whole. Each day has its own set of colours, its own morning, its own list of tasks. Repeating this pattern makes the year not a battlefield, but a card of operations, where each strike is delivered at the right moment. Then, 2026 for Scorpio ceases to be reduced to constant tension and struggle against everyone. The happiest days become points where strength finally works systematically. In money, through precise contracts and consistent decisions. In relationships, through transparent rules and honest conversations. In health, through a real regime, not impulsive steps. Colors cease to be a random choice from the closet and become a daily tool for concentration. Thus, the harsh nature of this sign shifts from a mode of constant defense to a mode of controlled offense where it really matters. Sagittarius. For Sagittarius, 2026 is not about a passive, let's see what happens approach, but about a clear rhythm of bursts, launches, and bold decisions on specific days. It is especially important for this sign to know when to take risks and when to stop and plan. The most productive days are the 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, 12th, 15th, 19th, 21st, 23rd, and 27th. These are not just lucky dates, but different types of days when the Sagittarius brain works differently, sometimes faster and bolder, sometimes more strategically, and sometimes more calmly and accurately in communications. If you tie the key actions of the year to these numbers, the movement ceases to be chaotic and begins to bring tangible results. The 1st, 5th, 9th, 19th, and 27th form the days of the leap. On these dates, Sagittarius has the right mix of courage and readiness to act without excessive doubt. This is a good time to launch new projects, agree to off-site meetings, plan trips, move to another city, or transfer activities to a different format or platform. If you have an idea that has been lying in a drawer for a long time, these numbers are the least suitable for postponing. They push you to take action. Not just think about a course, channel, product, or job change, but actually press the right buttons, send letters, and book tickets. During these days, Sagittarius feels more clearly that risk is not a threat, but a tool. The 3rd, 12th, and 21st are days for strategies and learning. On these dates, the mind works not in leaps and bounds, but in long, logical lines. This is when it is worth sitting down with your plans, writing out the structure of the year, laying out the stages of project development, selecting training programs, working with a mentor, analyzing where your current activities are actually leading. If Sagittarius wants to expand their professional competencies, these days should be marked as key. Registering for courses, drawing up a reading plan, choosing topics to study, and calculating the financial investment in education. The 7th, 15th, and 23rd are good days for working with people, contacts, team, relationships, clients, partners. On these days, Sagittarius feels better about how their words sound and is able not only to inspire, but also to explain. On these days, it is advisable to plan negotiations, search for like-minded people, discuss collaborations, set rules in a couple, and talk to loved ones about plans and workload. If you have long needed to explain what you want from cooperation or relationships, it is easier to speak specifically on these dates, rather than in general phrases based on emotions. The color palette for Sagittarius in 2026 reinforces all this no less than the calendar itself. They need shades that support movement, distant horizons, and clarity of decisions, rather than dragging them into a heavy, viscous state. The basic colors of luck are royal blue, cobalt, deep indigo, sapphire, bright but pure turquoise, rich purple, fiery orange, warm brick red, light beige, warm milky, pure white, and dark denim blue. Additional accents: soft terracotta and muted gold in details without excessive shine. Blue shades keep the focus on goals. Orange and terracotta raise the tone. Turquoise reminds of freedom. Beige and milky tones prevent fatigue from constant movement. On the days of the surge, the 1st, 5th, 9th, 19th, and 27th, the best combinations are royal blue, indigo, and denim blue with fiery orange or terracotta accents. This could be a blue jacket and terracotta sweater, a denim shirt and orange accessories, such as a belt, scarf, or bracelet, or a cobalt hoodie with small, warm accents. This palette clearly tells the brain, today is a day for movement, not hesitation. It works well in negotiations where you need to propose a new format, present a bold project, or convey an idea that breaks the mold. On the 3rd, 12th, and 21st, when the focus is on strategy, cobalt and indigo paired with white, milk, and light beige are appropriate. Clothes in these shades create a clean slate effect, where the structure is clearly visible. This could be a white shirt and dark blue vest, light beige pants and a cobalt top, a milky sweater and indigo jeans. These combinations are not overly loud, but they do have depth. When Sagittarius sits down to plan on such days, it is important that there are no colourful distractions around. A clean desk, a minimalist background on the screen, one notebook instead of 10. People's days, the 7th, 15th, and 23rd, require a softer but confident palette. Turquoise, sapphire, rich purple, light beige, milky, and terracotta work well here. For meetings with partners, clients, or loved ones, an outfit with a turquoise or sapphire detail, shirt, scarf, blouse, against a background of calm beige or milky items is suitable. If the topic is complex, it is advisable to refresh the image with a purple element, a small decoration, notebook, or cover. These shades combine sincerity and subtle pressure. The interlocutor feels that they are dealing with a person who thinks broadly, but does not pressure just for the sake of pressure. Sagittarius's workspace in 2026 should resemble a launch pad rather than a warehouse of random items. The basic option: a light-coloured tabletop, white, milky, light beige, a chair in dark blue or graphite tones, a few bright but thoughtful accents, a turquoise organizer, a cobalt notebook, a terracotta cup. On the table, only what really works for the day's tasks: a laptop, a notebook, a pen, a minimum of unnecessary trifles. It is important that on days 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 12, 15, 19, 21, 23, and 27, before starting work, there is at least a brief review, one movement, and everything unnecessary disappears from view. Sagittarius's digital space should also be adjusted to the groups of lucky days. For days 1, 5, 9, 19, and 27, use backgrounds with an active blue and orange color scheme. Horizon lines, cities from above, roads, airplanes, but without excessive detail. For the 3rd, 12th, and 21st, calmer scenes, diagrams, maps, abstractions in a blue-white-beige palette that encourage planning. For the 7th, 15th, and 23rd, scenes with people in motion. Conferences, conversations, podiums, urban spaces, decorated in turquoise, blue, and beige. When the background changes the day before, the mind quickly shifts into the right mode, and the day does not dissolve into random actions. In finance, Sagittarius often relies on intuition and gut feeling, but 2026 provides an opportunity to add numbers and a calendar to this. The 3rd, 12th, and 21st should be used as days for financial strategy. Write down income goals, the desired range of the amount you want to receive each month, and a list of areas from which money can come. On these days, it is useful to analyze which actions actually brought income and which only took time. There is no 6 here. For Sagittarius, the role of the working number is partially taken over by 5 and 15. On these days, it is worth taking concrete steps that lead to money. Writing proposals, reaching out to new customers, preparing products for launch, and negotiating cooperation. It is appropriate to tie the 1st, 5th, 9th, 19th, and 27th to launches. The release of a new product, the start of an advertising campaign, the first announcement of a service, the presentation of a package, or the launch of a new platform. Here, it is important not to try to polish everything to perfection, but to take the first working step. During these days, Sagittarius overcomes their own perfectionism by not allowing themselves to stop at the "we are still thinking" stage. A separate notebook or file for launch days helps to record what exactly was done, so that you can then see a chain of decisions rather than a set of random attempts. In relationships, the 7th, 15th, and 23rd give Sagittarius a real advantage. On these days, it is easier not only to inspire your partner or loved ones, but also to agree on specific rules. Here it is worth talking about important topics: the format of the relationship, plans, division of responsibilities, finances in the couple, everyday life, and joint travel. Soft shades in clothing, turquoise, sapphire, beige, milky, create a background against which Sagittarius's usual direct wording is perceived not as pressure, but as clarity. It is important to avoid phrases such as, "This is the right thing to do because I decided so," and switch to phrases such as, "It is important to me," "I expect," "I am ready." Health and energy are tied to the same numbers, but with different tasks. The 1st, 5th, 9th, 19th, and 27th are suitable for activities: training, hiking, cycling, any kind of movement where there is a sense of distance and achievement. Sportswear in shades of blue, turquoise, and orange enhances the feeling of dynamism, but it is important not to turn it into a race. The goal is not to exhaust yourself, but to let your body feel that it is moving forward, just like your career or projects. The 3rd, 12th, and 21st are better for planning your routine: when to go to bed, how to distribute your workload, what foods to add or remove, and what tests to take. Morning rituals play an important role in 2026. For Sagittarius, they should be short and specific, without complicated routines. On breakthrough days, 1, 5, 9, 19, 27, 3 steps are enough. A short physical warm-up, a few exercises or a quick walk, 1 page of your daily plan with 3 main tasks, and a quick check of your calendar for lucky dates. On strategic days, 3, 12, 21, it is worth starting the morning not with messengers, but with a clean sheet. Write down what you want to achieve in the coming months and what steps will lead to this. On human days, 7, 15, 23, make a list of 3 conversations that are really important and make it a rule to be more specific than usual in them. There are also color combinations that Sagittarius should avoid in 2026, especially on the luckiest days. An excess of heavy dark brown, dark grey without light accents, dirty green, as well as neon flashy combinations, acid yellow and light green, create a feeling of either stagnation or empty noise. In the first case, the willingness to move disappears, and in the second, chaotic bustle appears without real progress. If the room itself is gloomy, clothing can compensate for this. Blue, turquoise, beige, and white give a feeling of space even where the walls are oppressive. In order for the Happy Days Plus Colors system to become a working tool, and not just a beautiful description, it is useful for Sagittarius to create a simple matrix for themselves. For example, 1, 5, 9, 19, 27, days of launches and leaps, blue plus orange, movement, new actions. 3, 12, 21, days of strategy, blue plus white plus beige, analysis, planning, learning. 7, 15, 23, days of people, turquoise plus beige, plus soft accents, negotiations, agreements, team. These numbers can be highlighted in different colors in the calendar. Separate notebooks can be placed on the desktop for each type of day, and the background can be changed in advance on the phone. After a few months, this scheme will start to work automatically. On days of action, your hands will automatically reach for launches. On days of strategy, for tables and plans. On days of people, for calls and meetings with those who are really important. Thus, 2026 for Sagittarius ceases to resemble an endless race, where he boldly starts, then burns out just as quickly. Specific days and a well-thought-out palette bring his activity into a controlled mode. There is time for a sprint. There is time for analysis. There is time for negotiations. Colours cease to be a random choice from the closet and begin to function as markers of the day's mode. And it is in this combination, the right date, the right tone, the right action, that Sagittarius can maximize the potential of the year without losing the feeling of freedom and forward movement. Capricorn. In 2026, Capricorn will have the opportunity to work not just more, but smarter. Luck will cease to look like a random bonus and will be tied to strictly defined days and clear decisions. This is a year in which discipline, numbers, and systems are directly converted into money, status, influence, and stability if you act on the right dates. The most productive days for Sagittarius are the 1st, 4th, 6th, 8th, 10th, 14th, 17th, 19th, 22nd, 24th, 26th, and 28th. Each group of these days has its own function. Some are responsible for career and money, others for the structure of life, and still others for health, endurance, and long-term stamina. The 1st, 10th, 19th, and 28th are days of career advancement and tough positioning. It is on these dates that Capricorn is able to most clearly define their role, not as an executor, but as a rule setter. This is when it is worth planning conversations with management, negotiations on rates, signing important contracts, launching your own projects, and presenting results that will change your place in the hierarchy. On these days, they will not be distracted by minor tasks and will not waste time on things that do not bring growth. If there is a choice of when to show themselves to a new partner, investor, or important client, one of these dates will be the most successful. The 4th, 14th, and 24th serve as reference points for the structure of life. Finances, documents, long-term commitments, legal and administrative issues. These are days for budgets, contracts, annual plans, property registration, and expense audits. Here, Capricorn takes a particularly sober look at the numbers, seeing where the system works and where the rules need to be changed. If you need to rewrite your financial plan, optimize payments, spread out loans, or build up reserves, these dates offer minimal emotional fluctuations and maximum ability to reach concrete decisions. The 6th, 8th, 17th, 22nd, and 26th are associated with resources, health, endurance, daily routine, and productivity. On these days, you can better feel the line between still normal and the body is already worn out. It is worth planning medical checkups, consultations, dietary adjustments, changes to your training schedule, and sleep adjustments on these days. These dates are also suitable for optimizing the work process, introducing new tools, automation, delegation, reviewing how each hour is spent. Capricorns are naturally inclined to take everything upon themselves. It is on these days that they can rationally divide the load. The 22nd plays a special role. It is the point where discipline and contact with people meet. On this day, it is advisable to combine systemic decisions with discussing rules within the team and family. New regulations, agreements on the distribution of responsibilities, and changes in the schedule can be launched here, which improve not only his personal efficiency, but also the functioning of his environment. If there is a feeling that everyone around is relaxed and only he is pulling, it is the 22nd that allows you to calmly but firmly change the balance. The colors of 2026 for Capricorn are a continuation of his character: restrained, deep, structured. They do not scream, but they clearly set the tone. The basic palette: graphite, charcoal grey, deep anthracite, dark blue, cool dark green, dark pine, stone beige, light concrete grey, milky white without yellowness, tin metal, deep brown, the color of wet asphalt. As accents: restrained silver, matte metal, very muted burgundy or wine in minimal doses. Grey and graphite shades attract attention. Dark blue maintains discipline. Pine green creates a feeling of a solid foundation, and metal details remind us of an instrumental approach to any issue. On career decision days, the 1st, 10th, 19th, and 28th, Capricorns should build their image around graphite, dark blue, and pure white or milky white. For example, a graphite suit or trousers, a dark blue shirt or sweater, a white or milky white detail, t-shirt, shirt under a jacket, a discreet metal watch, a belt without large logos. This look is perceived as a symbol of a person who controls processes rather than being swept along by them. On these days, it is worth avoiding any variegation and random colors, no relaxed combinations that spoil the feeling of strength. The 4th, 14th, and 24th, which are associated with structure, require an even more technical palette: light concrete grey, stone beige, charcoal grey, tin, with small accents of dark green. Clothes in these colours create the feeling of an office where papers are laid out, numbers are counted, and decisions are made that will have an impact for years to come. This could be a light grey sweater and dark grey pants, a beige jacket with a graphite shirt, stone beige chinos, and a dark top. This combination does not distract or provoke emotions, but allows you to work for hours with tables, contracts, and calendars without overload. On the 6th, 8th, 17th, 22nd, and 26th, when the focus is on health and routine, it is advisable to incorporate cool, dark green, pine, dark blue, and light grey into your look. These shades in sportswear, homeware, and everyday workwear set the tone. I stay in shape not for photos, but for endurance. For example, a dark green tracksuit, dark blue pants, and a light grey jacket, a pine sweatshirt, and grey jeans. This palette allows you not to switch to holiday mode, but to perceive caring for your body as part of your work system. Capricorn's work desk in 2026 is one of the key tools for success. The tabletop should preferably be in a restrained colour scheme: dark wood, graphite, light grey without patterns. No colourful tablecloths, painted coasters, or unnecessary decorations. On the surface, a laptop, a notebook, a few pens, a lamp with neutral light, possibly one small plant in a simple dark pot. Organisers should be graphite, metal, or dark green. On lucky days, 1, 4, 6, 8, 10, 14, 17, 19, 22, 24, 26, and 28, you should start with 5 to 10 minutes of physical tidying up. Clear everything you don't need today from your desk, sort your documents into categories, and close unnecessary tabs on your computer. This is not perfectionism for perfectionism's sake, but a direct enhancement of your ability to concentrate for long periods of time. Capricorn's digital space should also work for them. It is advisable to adjust the background of your phone and laptop to match the groups of days for the 1st, 10th, 19th, and 28th. Use dark but structured backgrounds. Photos of the city from above, with a predominance of graphite and dark blue tones. Minimalist abstractions with strict lines. For the 4th, 14th, and 24th, use images associated with structure: shelves with folders, architecture, stairs, graphics in grey, beige, and green tones. For 6, 8, 17, 22, 26, scenes related to nature: mountains, coniferous forests, rocky slopes, roads in cold green, grey and blue tones. When the background changes for a specific type of day, the brain enters the desired mode more quickly. In 2026, Capricorn's finances are best organized around a framework of 4 key dates each month. One day from the group of 4, 14, 24 can be designated as the base day for the budget. On this day, they calculate all income, record expenses, check whether anything unnecessary is eating away at the system, and make decisions about reducing unnecessary expenses. One day from 1, 10, 19, 28 is a day of growth. Here they negotiate rates, new sources of income, expansion of activities, and issues related to the price of their own work. One day out of 6, 8, 17, 22, 26 is a day for routine money matters, checking subscriptions, changing bank settings, and monitoring financial security. Another strong day is for planning investments, education, technology, and tools that really help increase income. In relationships, Capricorn is not looking for drama. They need clear agreements. It is best to set them up on the 6th, 17th, 22nd, and 26th. On these days, they are able to speak directly, without wrapping things up in beautiful but empty phrases. It is advisable to discuss everyday life. A joint budget, time management, boundaries, and respect for each other's work. On such days, it is worth choosing clothes in cool but not aggressive shades: light grey, graphite, dark blue, dark green, without sharp, bright accents. This is the background against which his words are perceived as a serious rather than emotional position. If you have questions for your partner that have been accumulating for a long time, these numbers allow you to voice them constructively. In the family sphere, the 4th, 14th, and 24th can be days when major joint decisions are discussed: repairs, purchasing appliances, moving, joint financial projects, planning important events. Here, it is important to remain in the role of someone who proposes a system rather than simply controlling others. Instead of saying, "We are doing this because I said so," it is better to use arguments such as, "It's more profitable because," or "This schedule is more convenient because." When those around you see the logic, there is less resistance. Capricorn's health and resources in 2026 will depend not on isolated bursts of energy, but on the ability to establish a routine. The 6th, 8th, 17th, 22nd, and 26th are the most logical days to start new habits: a stable bedtime, regular walks, workouts, diet control, and fasting days. On these days, you can set basic rules for yourself: minimum hours of sleep, step goals, and a meal plan for work days. It is important not to create a system that will only work for a week, but to build it in such a way that it can be maintained for months. Capricorns should tie their workouts to those same lucky days, but without fanaticism. For example, on the 6th and 17th, do strength or functional exercises. On the 8th and 22nd, do cardio or longer walks. And on the 26th, do stretching, light weights, and recovery. Workout clothes in dark green, dark blue, graphite, and light grey create an inner feeling that this is not a one-time impulse, but part of a system on the level of work. Morning rituals on happy days should be as simple and repetitive as possible. On the 1st, 10th, 19th, and 28th, Capricorn's morning can consist of 3 steps: short physical activation, a few exercises, stretching, or a quick walk, reviewing the main goals for the month, and choosing 3 key actions for today that are directly related to career and income. On the 4th, 14th, and 24th, start your morning with numbers, check your balances, review your payment plan, and adjust your budget. On the 6th, 8th, 17th, 22nd, and 26th, take care of your body, drink water, eat a light breakfast without excess sugar, and briefly plan your day. These steps don't take hours, but they set the right direction. There are palettes that Capricorns should be careful with in 2026, especially on lucky days. An excess of soft, blurred pastel shades that have no support creates a feeling of blurred boundaries in their case. Acidic colours, neon combinations, and colourful prints work against him on strong days. His attention is scattered. He loses focus on his tasks, and people perceive him as either too light or internally tense. If the environment in which he finds himself is too bright, it is worth compensating for this with clothing, a restrained, structured silhouette, a dark base, and a minimum of random details. In order for the combination of day plus colour plus action to become a working tool, Capricorn should formally fix his system. For example, highlight the following in your calendar with colours. Career days, 1, 10, 19, 28. Dark blue, structure days, 4, 14, 24. Grey, resource days, 6, 8, 17, 22, 26. Green. Create 3 separate sections in your notebook. Career and money, structure and resources. On career days, work only with the first section. On structure days, with the second. And on resource days, with the third, without mixing everything into one stream. This way, every happy day ceases to be just lucky and becomes a working point where a specific action is reinforced by the right date and the right environment. As a result, 2026 may no longer seem like an endless marathon without a finish line for Capricorn. The happiest days cease to be lost among the mundane ones because they are given a clear task. Some work on career growth, others on structure, and still others on resources. Colours in clothing and space cease to be a random choice and become a tool that reminds him every day of the mode in which he is currently working. And when this pattern repeats itself, Capricorn's energy is no longer spent fighting chaos, but goes toward what they have been working toward for years, a tangible, measurable, stable advantage in real results. Aquarius. For Aquarius, 2026 is a time when improvisation ceases to be chaotic and becomes controlled. Their inner need for freedom and novelty can be combined with a clear schedule if they focus not only on their mood, but also on specific dates. The most productive days are those when intellect, intuition, and external circumstances coincide in one vector. This year, the 2nd, 5th, 7th, 9th, 11th, 13th, 18th, 20th, 23rd, 27th, and 29th play this role. They set the rhythm. Some are more suitable for breakthrough ideas, others for money, others for contacts, and others for recovery and course correction. The 2nd, 11th, and 20th have the greatest impact on communication, teamwork, and partnerships. On these days, Aquarius finds it easier to formulate thoughts without losing depth, but also without overwhelming the interlocutor with details. It is worth planning meetings, conferences, discussions of collaborations, and negotiations about a conditional, joint game. Who is responsible for what? Which formats of interaction are realistic, and which are not? If you have questions for your work team, friends, or partner about boundaries, responsibilities, and time allocation, these dates offer the best chance to sort everything out point by point without unnecessary emotional excesses. The 5th, 13th, 23rd, and 27th are associated with ideas, projects, creativity, and technology. These are days for brainstorming, working with non-standard solutions, testing new tools, configuring services and systems, and launching experiments. It is then that Aquarius sees better than others where the process can be simplified, what should be automated, how to transform a routine task into a more efficient model. If there is an idea that seems too bold to implement on any other day, it is on the 5th, 13th, 23rd, and 27th that you get the feeling that the risk is calculated and not random. The 7th, 9th, 18th, and 29th work for money and resources. They may not necessarily look like instant financial surprises, but it is on these days that it is easier to establish flows, negotiate payments, discuss budgets, determine the cost of your own work, choose monetization formats, and analyze what is really worth earning. These are days for contacting those who make financial decisions, consulting with experts, and taking a cold look at your products and services. What brings in income, what should be closed, and what should be changed. The 18th occupies a separate niche. It is well suited for a system review, not of individual payments or tasks, but of your overall lifestyle. On this day, Aquarius is able to look at their schedule, expenses, contacts, and workload without illusions. This is a good time to decide which commitments to give up, what can be delegated, and which formats of work or communication don't make sense. If you feel like you've been scattered in recent months, the 18th gives you a clear signal of where your energy is being lost. The colours that enhance Aquarius in 2026 should work not for effect, but for clarity of thought and a sense of space. This year's basic palette: pure cool white, light grey, silver, blue-grey, sky blue, saturated, but not flashy turquoise, electric blue, graphite blue, soft mint, deep azure, cool dark blue, and as accents, restrained violet blue and barely noticeable metallic shades. These colours are not oppressive or overwhelming, while creating an impression of air and movement. On the 2nd, 11th, and 20th, when communication is in the spotlight, combinations of sky blue, mint, light grey, and white work well. This could be a light blue shirt, a white t-shirt under a jacket, a mint scarf, light grey pants, sneakers, or shoes in calm grey tones. This look is perceived as open, but not intrusive. In it, Aquarius looks like a person with whom it is comfortable to discuss ideas and agreements, without the impression that they are pushing their position. If the meeting is offline, it is helpful to have some light neutral colours in the room: a white or light grey table, light walls, without too many heavy dark details. The 5th, 13th, 23rd, and 27th, dedicated to ideas and technology, are enhanced by electric blue, turquoise, azure, silver, and blue-grey. Bold combinations are appropriate here. For example, an electric blue sweater or hoodie, a turquoise shirt, an azure accessory, a silver watch or bracelet, or a blue-grey jacket. These colours convey a sense of dynamism rather than monotony. They subconsciously hint at forward movement associated with innovation, digital solutions, and changes in the way we work. On the 7th, 9th, 18th, and 29th, when the main theme is resources, finance, and stability, it is worth relying on graphite blue, cool dark blue, white, light grey, and small metallic accents. This is a case where the image should look restrained, structured, and reliable. For example, graphite pants, a dark blue shirt or sweater, a white or light grey detail, a watch or accessory with a metallic texture. In this combination, interlocutors perceive Aquarius not as someone who just makes things up, but as someone who understands how this translates into money. Aquarius's workspace in 2026 should be a visual confirmation of their thinking style. Clean lines, nothing superfluous, maximum air. The tabletop should be white, light grey, or very light wood. The chair should be grey, graphite, or dark blue. On the table, there should be a laptop, a notebook or tablet, 1 or 2 pens, and a glass of water. Accents should include a turquoise or sky blue organizer, a silver stand, and a mint-coloured notebook. On lucky days, especially the 5th, 13th, 23rd, and 27th, It is worth removing all extraneous items from the table before starting work. Small souvenirs, unnecessary papers, boxes, unused cables. Your digital environment should follow the same principle. It is advisable to synchronize your phone and laptop backgrounds with groups of dates. For the 2nd, 11th, and 20th, use images with smooth sky blue and mint transitions and a minimum of details. It could be the sky, light clouds, a futuristic interior, or light abstractions. For the 5th, 13th, 23rd, and 27th, choose backgrounds with electric blue, turquoise, silver, and graphic lines reminiscent of diagrams, networks, and interfaces. For 7, 9, 18, 29, restrained scenes in dark blue, grey, and white tones. Night city, architecture, roads, bridges. When the background changes ahead of time, the Aquarius brain receives a hint before the start of the day about which mode will be the main one. In the financial sphere, it is important for Aquarius not so much to save as to build a model in which money flows systematically. The 7th, 9th, 18th, and 29th should be used as base days for working with numbers. One of these days can be set aside for reviewing expenses and income, the 2nd for analysing areas from which additional income may come, the 3rd for discussions about payment, rates, and terms of cooperation, and the 4th for adjusting subscriptions, tariffs, and small regular payments. It is advisable to record all decisions in a table, document, or specific points rather than general wishes. The 5th, 13th, 23rd, and 27th are logical days to launch or test new ways of earning money. If you have ideas for digital products, online services, or automated services, this is the best time to set deadlines and try them out. It is not necessary to launch a perfect product. It is important to make a working version from which you can collect feedback. This could be the first release of a course, the launch of a channel, a test of a new content format, a pilot version of a service, or a short consultation as a prototype. For Aquarius, the principle of prototype first, then scale works particularly well these days. In relationships and teamwork, the 2nd, 11th, and 20th are key days. These are the days when it is worth clearly articulating what he expects from the interaction, in a relationship, in business, in friendship. Here, it is advisable to move from general phrases to specific agreements. Who is responsible for what? What format of communication is comfortable? What topics are better not to touch on in the work environment? How shared resources are distributed. It is important not to get bogged down in abstractions and not to limit yourself to just the atmosphere. The more specific the rules are, the fewer conflicts will arise later. The 5th, 13th, 23rd, and 27th can be used to create or update your environment. Search for like-minded people. Connect with specialists who think outside the box. Form circles where technology, ideas, and development are normal topics of conversation. On these days, it is easy to enter new circles of communication through online meetings, professional communities, forums, and specialized events. Clothing in turquoise and blue tones on such days emphasizes that Aquarius is open to new things without abandoning their own position. In 2026, Aquarius's health and resources will be tied to their ability to switch off, not just to start new processes. The 9th, 18th, and 29th are particularly suitable for rebooting, controlling sleep, avoiding excessive stimulation in the evening, information noise, bright screen light until late at night. Simple, stable rituals, water, light meals, walks. On these days, you can schedule basic medical examinations, consultations, and tests that have been postponed for a long time. It is important to view health as a system, not just as a reaction when something hurts. Physical activity is good on the 5th, 13th, 23rd, and 27th. It is appropriate to add dynamics here: swimming, cycling, brisk walking, light running, and bodyweight training. Sportswear in blue, turquoise, and mint shades serves as a hint. Movement should not be difficult, but rather give a feeling of lightness and renewal. It is important for Aquarius to avoid extremes. Overly intense workouts without preparation only take away resources rather than add to them. Morning activities on happy days for Aquarius should be short and practical. On the 2nd, 11th, and 20th, it is worth starting the day with 3 questions. Who do you definitely need to talk to today? Which agreements are stuck? And which relationships need clarification? Write down a list of 3 to 5 specific contacts on a piece of paper, then block out a time when these conversations can actually take place. On the 5th, 13th, 23rd, and 27th, you can start the morning by recording your ideas. 10-15 minutes to write down everything that is on your mind, and from this list, choose 1 or 2 things that you can put into action today. On the 7th, 9th, 18th, and 29th, briefly review your expenses, payments, and planned financial steps. There are color combinations that Aquarius should avoid overdoing in 2026, especially on the most powerful days. An excess of warm, heavy tones, deep browns, overly dense burgundies, orange yellows without light accents create the effect of a space that presses and narrows the view. Neon acid shades also do not work in their favor. They create unnecessary excitement that does not translate into productivity. If the environment itself is dark or colorful, it is worth compensating for it with clothing. White, light gray, sky blue, and mint reduce the feeling of visual pressure. To make the Happy Days plus colors system a practical tool, rather than just an interesting description, Aquarius should formalize it in a calendar. For example, highlight 3 types of reference days for people: 2, 11, 20. For ideas and launches: 5, 13, 23, 27. For money and audits: 7, 9, 18, 29. Mark these numbers in advance each month, with a separate list of typical tasks for each. On people days, only negotiations, agreements, relationship building, and team processes. On idea days, work with new formats, testing, and training. On money days, only numbers, budgets, and payment negotiations. When this approach is repeated for several months in a row, 2026 ceases to resemble a chaotic stream of events for Aquarius. The happiest days cease to pass in the background. Each of them gets its own function, supported by correctly chosen colors in clothing and space. As a result, it is not random coincidences that govern their life, but a clear rhythm where intelligence, freedom, and practical solutions finally work together. Pisces. For Pisces, the main request in 2026 is simple: fewer chaotic emotions, more clear days when everything falls into place calmly and logically. They need a year in which they don't have to guess when their mood will allow them to act, but rather have specific dates when it is better to talk about money, ask for help, plan work, put their relationships in order, and take care of themselves. For Pisces, a set of numbers works especially well this year: 2, 4, 6, 9, 12, 16, 18, 22, 24, 27, and 29. These are not magical dates, but points at which the natural sensitivity of this sign shifts from a blurred background to a specific attentiveness to oneself and one's affairs. If you use them systematically, the year ceases to be a series of moods and turns into a clear path. The 2nd, 12th, 22nd, and 29th are days of gentle but very clear clarity. On these dates, Pisces look at people and situations more calmly, idealize less, and see more facts. This is the best time to talk about relationships, cooperation, partnership, and rules of interaction. If there are topics that have been accumulating for a long time that you don't want to spoil the atmosphere, these numbers are suitable for talking without strain, but also without self-deception. It is appropriate to discuss who is responsible for what in a couple or in a joint venture, where help ends and exploitation begins, and what expectations are realistic. The atmosphere is still important, but decisions are now based on specific formulations. The 4th, 9th, 18th, and 24th are days for everyday life, money, and organizing your life. This is not about great success, but about what really determines daily stability: bills, expenses, work schedule, small obligations, documents that are always later. On these days, Pisces can look at their budget, salary, service payments, subscriptions, debts, and small expenses that slowly drain their money without unnecessary emotions. It is useful to sit down with a spreadsheet, create lists of payments, calculate how much is actually spent on housing, food, transportation, and shopping, and what is spent simply because it was sad or it was scary to refuse. On such dates, it is easier to say no to expenses that do not add to the quality of life. The 6th, 16th, and 27th are resource days: health, energy, sleep, nutrition, and psycho-emotional state. On these dates, Pisces feel more clearly the line beyond which overwork no longer inspires, but takes away the taste for what they liked yesterday. This is when it is worth planning basic medical checkups, consultations, changes in diet, finding a sleep routine, and adjusting workloads. If you have long felt that your body has accumulated fatigue but is somehow holding on, these numbers give you a chance to finally stop pretending that everything is fine and take concrete action. Tests, a schedule, a plan for gradual changes, an agreement with yourself that will not be broken at the first sign of stress. The numbers 2 and 22 work separately. These days, one important theme is particularly evident: the balance between "I want to help" and "I am being used." This is when it is worth rewriting the internal rules: to whom, under what conditions, and in what form Pisces are ready to give their time, attention, and support, and where they need to learn to end conversations, not respond immediately, and not take on other people's tasks. If you sit down with a notebook these days and write down your boundaries, it will be much easier to resist where this sign usually silently agrees. The colors that enhance Pisces in 2026 work not for effect, but for inner balance and a sense of support. The basic palette for this sign: soft but deep water shades, aquamarine, turquoise, light mint, delicate blue, muted azure, deep sea blue, neutral bases, milky, light beige, warm pearl white, soft grey blue, supporting tones, dusty pink, muted lavender, light grey, accents, deep dark blue and dark blue-green. These colours do not overload the nervous system, but give a feeling of purity, space, and light movement. On the 2nd, 12th, 22nd, and 29th, when it comes to relationships and agreements, milky, light beige, soft grey blue, powder pink, sky blue, and light lavender work especially well. Clothes in these shades create the impression of a person with whom you want to talk calmly and honestly. This could be a light blue shirt, a milky sweater, beige pants, a powdery scarf, or a soft lavender accessory. It is important to avoid overly dark, closed images these days, so as not to provoke the feeling that a Pisces representative is either offended or already anticipating conflict. Here you need a background of trust and softness, but without dissolving yourself. On the 4th, 9th, 18th, and 24th, which are responsible for finances and everyday life, it is better to stick to a palette of light grey, beige, white-grey, and deeper blue shades. For example, a light grey sweater, dark blue pants, beige shoes, a white t-shirt, and a grey-blue shirt. This combination gives the feeling of a working, collected day. No holidays, no drama, just ordinary, calm management of your own life. On these days, it is especially undesirable to make your image too romantic or festive. Glitter, bright random colours, and excessive decorations create the impression that money is something emotional. Sobriety is needed here. On the 6th, 16th and 27th, days of resources, aquamarine, light mint, turquoise, azure, milky, and light grey are good colours to wear. In sportswear, homeware, and outdoor clothing, these colours remind Pisces that taking care of yourself is not a luxury or something to be done when you have time, but part of your basic functionality. If you choose a comfortable, soft, but neat colour scheme these days, and don't sit around all day in clothes associated with decline, old, worn-out things, dark, shapeless clothes, your inner state will change noticeably. Your body and consciousness will receive the signal. I am not being treated as a spare resource. The Pisces workspace in 2026 should remove one of the main triggers of this sign: visual chaos. It is advisable to make the desk light, white, milky, light beige, or light wood. Only what is really necessary should be on the surface: a laptop or computer, a notebook, a pen, a glass of water, perhaps a small plant in a simple pot of a calm colour. Accents should be soft water tones, an aquamarine organiser, a turquoise diary cover, a grey-blue phone case. It is important that there are no unfinished trifles, crumpled papers, check tapes, or random souvenirs lying on the table all the time. On lucky days, 2, 4, 6, 9, 12, 16, 18, 22, 24, 27, 29. Pisces morning ritual can begin with 3 minutes of cleaning the surface. This is enough for the brain to stop being distracted by minor irritants. Digital space is also very important. If the phone screen is cluttered with icons, messages, and red marks, this creates constant background pressure for Pisces. In 2026, it is worth doing one simple thing: organize apps into folders, remove everything that is not used daily from the home screen, and turn off unnecessary notifications. It is better to set your phone and laptop backgrounds to calm watercolors, aquamarine, turquoise, grey-blue, white mint compositions without small details. If you also link the backgrounds to groups of days, for example, light pastel colors for 2, 12, 22, 29, more structured blue-grey for 4, 9, 18, 24, vivid watercolors for 6, 16, 27, your consciousness will receive reminders about which mode to work in today. In the financial sphere, Pisces often make decisions based on feelings and then take a long time to recover from the consequences. 2026 offers a chance to rebuild this pattern. The 4th, 9th, 18th, and 24th should be used as reference points for the budget. On one of these days, Pisces can start a table of income and expenses, to which real figures are added every month, rather than approximate estimates. On another day, they can review subscriptions, regular payments, and small but regular purchases that take away money that could be a reserve. Another day can be set aside for planning. What fixed expenses already exist? Which ones can be reduced? How much you want to save each month? If you approach this as a technical task rather than a painful topic, the panic will subside. The 2nd, 12th, 22nd, and 29th are good days to talk about money with other people. Your employer, customers, partners, family members, or romantic partner. On these days, Pisces can explain that their work should be paid for specifically, that the household budget cannot be based solely on their efforts, that expenses should be discussed and not somehow decided on their own. It is important to speak in numbers and examples. I need this much for this. This service costs this much. Utility costs are this much. We will divide it this way. When words are backed up by calculations, it is much easier to negotiate. The 6th, 16th, and 27th may become emotionless financial days. Here, it is worth looking not only at expenses, but also at income. What exactly brings in money? What activities take up time without pay? What skills can be monetized if they are structured into a product or service? On these days, it is useful to write down all the formats of work or creativity that a Pisces representative is engaged in, and honestly, mark each one with income, minimum income, only for the soul, takes a lot of resources, does not bring money. Such a list helps to see where exactly the balance needs to be changed. Relationships are one of the most important topics for this sign. The 2nd, 12th, 22nd, and 29th should be used as days for honest conversations without the habit of putting up with things so as not to spoil the mood. Here it is appropriate to talk about routine, daily life, finances as a couple. Time for yourself, respect for personal boundaries, and the format of support. It is helpful to avoid accusations and phrases such as "you always" or "you never." Instead, speak descriptively. It's hard for me when I need time for. It's important to me that. On days like these, it is better not to overload the day with outside meetings. After a serious conversation, you need time to digest the changes internally. In family relationships, the 4th, 9th, and 24th can be used for practical agreements. Who is responsible for what at home, how household chores are divided, how the budget is allocated, and which tasks can be simplified or automated. Pisces don't need to take on the entire burden of household chores just because that's how it turned out. If you sit down at the table on these days and calmly divide up responsibilities, things will become noticeably easier. On these days, it is better to dress simply and modestly without any hint of a special occasion, so that the conversation is perceived as a normal part of life, not an emergency. Health and energy in 2026 for Pisces depend on one thing. Regularity is more important than perfection. The 6th, 16th, and 27th are the best times to start new habits. For example, on one day, decide that you will take a walk in the fresh air at least once a day. On another, set a bedtime rule, the time after which screens are turned off. On the third, adjust your diet to reduce the amount of unhealthy foods. When you start on these dates, there is less internal resistance. It is easier to tell yourself, I am doing this not because I am afraid, but because I need the resource. The 9th and 18th can be used as checkpoints. Track how your sleep, well-being, anxiety level, and productivity have changed. These are days for recording. Weight, number of hours of sleep per week, number of steps, well-being on a scale of 1 to 10. It is not necessary to dive into complex systems. A short note in a notebook is enough. After a few months, these notes will show how stress, sleep, diet, and mood are related. Morning rituals on happy days should be as simple and short as possible, but regular. On the 2nd, 12th, 22nd, and 29th, Pisces Day can begin with 3 questions. What am I doing for myself today? What one important conversation will I have? What one boundary will I definitely maintain today? It is worth writing down the answers and not trying to squeeze 10 tasks into a day that is needed for communication. On the 4th, 9th, 18th, and 24th, it is worth starting the morning with finances and everyday life, checking bills, making a list of necessary purchases without impulsive spending, and 3 technical tasks that have been put off for a long time. On the 6th, 16th, and 27th, start with your body. Water, light stretching, a few minutes of quiet planning for the day without your phone. There are also color combinations that are best not to emphasize in 2026, especially on the strongest days of Pisces. An excess of heavy, dull tones without a light balance, black, dark brown, dirty green, dark grey, creates an emotional Bofurca effect, in which thoughts become slower and moods become heavier. Neon, acid shades, sharp contrasts without pause, bright yellow with screaming pink, light green with black, overload the nervous system and provoke fatigue even before midday. If the space around you is like this, you can use clothing as a counterbalance. Light beige, milky, watery shades, and soft pastels relieve tension. To ensure that the Happy Days plus Colors system does not remain just a beautiful description, it is useful for Pisces to turn it into a very specific tool. For example, identify 3 types of reference days: days of relationships and agreements, 2, 12, 22, 29, days of money and everyday life, 4, 9, 18, 24, days of resources and health, 6, 16, 27. These dates can be marked in different colors in the calendar, and 3 separate lists can be made in a notebook. What to talk about, what to count and organize, and how to take care of yourself. On relationship days, don't touch financial tables and difficult work tasks, but focus on conversations and setting boundaries. On money days, don't get caught up in long emotional dialogues, but work with numbers and everyday life. On resource days, don't fill your day with meetings, but plan your movement, sleep, nutrition, and medical issues. When a Pisces structures their 2026 in this way, the happiest days cease to be lost amid waves of mood swings. Each date gets its own task, and its own palette, clothes, and space begin to work with decisions, not against them. Where everything used to depend on how today feels, a calm system emerges. Specific numbers for relationships, for money, for health. And in this mode, Pisces' sensitivity ceases to be a weakness and becomes a precise instrument that allows them to see in time what exactly needs to be changed in order to live not on the edge, but in stable, tangible comfort.